Colonel Richard Hayes leaned across the table, looked Captain Emily Walker in the eye, and tore her career in half without blinking. "You are done," he said. "You will never wear that uniform again, and nobody will ever believe a word you say." Then he smiled. 8 years later, 22 Army Rangers were dying in a mountain valley, and the only person on earth who could save them was the woman he threw away. Before we go further, please subscribe to the channel and stay with this story until the very end. And comment the city you are watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The soldier they tried to erase. The room where they ended Emily Walker's life had no windows. She remembered that detail more than any other. Not the flag in the corner, not the water pitcher nobody touched, not the 3 officers who sat across from her with folders they never opened. Just the fact that there were no windows and that a woman who had spent her entire adult life learning to read wind and distance and light was going to lose everything inside a box where none of those things existed. Colonel Richard Hayes did most of the talking. "Captain Walker," he said, "do you understand the seriousness of the accusations you've made?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand that you have accused a commanding officer of falsifying mission reports?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand what that does to a career?" Emily looked at him for a long moment. She was 31 years old. She had 412 confirmed operational engagements. She had spent 9 days once in a drainage ditch outside Kandahar without moving more than her eyes, and she understood exactly what he was asking her. "Yes, sir," she said. "I understand what it does to yours." That was the moment. She knew it even then. She could have taken it back. She could have said the word mistake or the word confused or the word stress, and Hayes would have leaned back in his chair and let her keep her rank and her name and the rest of her life. He was giving her a door. He was practically holding it open. She walked past it. "Sir, I have the coordinates. I have the original transmission logs. I have the times, and I have the times you reported, and they do not match. 4 men died in that valley because somebody moved a rescue window by 90 minutes to make a timeline look cleaner. I'm not confused. I'm not stressed. I counted the bodies myself." The officer on Hayes' left shifted in his seat. Hayes did not. "That's a very confident statement," he said. "It's a true one." "Confidence and truth aren't the same thing, Captain. Ask any liar." And then he did something Emily would think about for 8 years. He smiled. Not a cruel smile, not a movie villain smile, a patient one. The smile of a man who had already read the last page of the book and was waiting for her to catch up. "Do you know what happens now?" he asked. "I imagine you're getting to tell me." "Nothing," Hayes said. "That's what happens. Nothing. There will be a review. The review will be thorough. The review will find that Captain Emily Walker, under significant operational stress, made an error in judgment during a critical engagement and subsequently made unsubstantiated allegations against her chain of command. The review will recommend separation. It will be very sad. Several people will say they saw it coming." Emily's hands were flat on the table. She kept them there. "That's not what happened," Captain Hayes said gently. "What happened is whatever ends up in the folder." He stood up. He buttoned his jacket. And on his way out, he stopped beside her chair, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath, and he said the thing that lived in her ribs for the next 8 years. "You're a rifle walker. Rifles don't testify. They get cleaned or they get thrown away." The door closed. She sat there for 11 more minutes. She knew because she counted. Counting was the only thing left that still worked. 8 years later, in a town in Montana with 1 stoplight and 2 churches, a woman named Emily was teaching a 54-year-old dental hygienist named Carol how to breathe. "You're pulling," Emily said. "Don't pull. You're not trying to make the shot happen. You're trying to let it happen." "That's very zen for a shooting range," Carol said. "It's very zen for everything." Carol laughed and settled back onto the mat, and Emily crouched beside her with one hand on the ground, and she watched the woman's shoulder blades the way other people watch a stock ticker. The rifle went off. The paper 30 meters down range developed a small hole 4 inches left of where Carol wanted it. "Better," Emily said. "That's not better. That's a miss. It's an honest miss. Last time you missed and you didn't know why. This time you knew before I said it." Carol sat up and pushed her hair back and squinted at her. "How do you know I knew?" "Your jaw," Emily said. Carol stared at her. "Emily, who were you before you came here?" The question landed the way it had always landed, softly with no bad intent, and it still made something in Emily's chest tighten like a fist. Nobody interesting, she said. Nobody in Wilcox County knew. That was the entire architecture of her life, carefully built board by board over 8 years. The people here knew Emily, who ran the little range out past the grain elevator. Emily, who fixed the Henderson's generator that winter the power went for 6 days. Emily, who never drank more than 1 beer, who never talked about family, who never once in 8 years raised her voice at anybody. They didn't know about the folder. They didn't know about the review that was very thorough. They didn't know that somewhere in a filing system in Virginia, there was a paragraph with her name on it that said she broke, and that every young soldier who ever heard the name Emily Walker heard it as a warning instead of a person. She had made peace with that. That's what she told herself. She told herself that on Tuesdays, especially when the range was empty and the wind came down off the ridge, and she could hear it the way she used to hear it, could read it, could tell you without thinking that it was running 11 right to left with a stutter at the 200 mark. That skill did not leave. It sat in her like a language she wasn't allowed to speak. She had made peace with it. That was a lie, and the phone call proved it. It came at 9:40 on a Thursday night in February, when the temperature outside had dropped to 9 degrees and the pipes under her kitchen were making the sound she'd been ignoring for a week. The number was blocked. She let it ring 3 times. She almost let it go. Hello? M. Nobody had called her M since the day they took her rank. She sat down on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet before she'd made any decision to do it. Thomas, Colonel Thomas Reed's voice sounded like a man who'd been running. Are you alone? Thomas, what? Are you alone, M? Yes or no? Yes, I'm alone. I'm always alone. That's kind of the whole design. What is happening? There was a pause on the line, and in that pause, she heard something behind him. Voices, fast ones, somebody saying a grid reference twice. I need you to listen to me for 90 seconds and not say no until I'm done, Thomas said. Thomas, 90 seconds, M, please. She closed her eyes. Go. 22 Rangers, 3rd Battalion. They went in on a rescue for a downed air crew in the Hindu Kush, and the crew was already gone by the time they got there, and the whole thing was bad from the first minute. Their extraction bird took fire and aborted. Their ground vehicles are burning. Their comms are down to one handheld with a broken antenna that only talks when the weather feels like it. They are in a bowl, a bowl, high ground on 3 sides and a river gap on the 4th, and the gap is covered. Emily's eyes were still closed. She was already seeing it. She hated that she was already seeing it. How long have they been down? 19 hours? 19? Yes. Thomas, that's not a rescue, that's an archaeology project. They're alive. As of 40 minutes ago, they were alive, and they had a captain named Brooks who has not stopped talking on that broken radio for 19 hours, and I have listened to every word, and I am telling you, M, that man is holding 22 people together with his voice and nothing else. Emily opened her eyes. Where's the QRF? Weathered out. Passes are closed. Best case for a real relief force is 9 hours. They don't have 9 hours. No, Thomas said. They have about 4, maybe less, because the enemy just started moving heavy stuff up the road, and once that heavy stuff gets set, that bowl becomes a bathtub. Emily put a hand over her face. Thomas, why are you calling me? You're calling me from what sounds like an operations center. There are, 40 people in that room, call one of them. I did. And there's one asset that can be over that valley inside 3 hours, and it's a single ship insert onto a ridge at 2,700 meters in a crosswind at night with no illumination, and the shooter has to make first contact cold with no spotter at ranges nobody wants to say out loud. So send a sniper. M. Send a sniper, Thomas. You have hundreds of them. You have schools full of them. You have a whole pipeline that exists specifically so that you never have to call a woman in Montana at 10 o'clock at night. I've got 3 shooters who could physically make that insert, Thomas said. I've got 0 who've ever made that shot in that wind, at that distance in the dark. That's not true. It's completely true, and you know it's true because I've read the file. The real one, not the folder. The one with the range data in it. And you did it twice. Twice. In Nuristan in 2009, and again outside Sangin, and both times the instructors argued about whether the data was even real. Emily didn't answer. You're the only person who can save them, Thomas said. And there it was. She was aware in a very calm and distant way that she was going to cry and that she did not want to, and that the wanting had nothing to do with whether it happened. No, she said. No, Thomas, no. Do you understand what you're asking? You want me to get on an airplane for an institution that took my name. Not my career, my name. Do you know what a 19-year-old private in this country hears when somebody says Emily Walker? He hears, don't be her. That's my legacy. I'm a cautionary tale for children. I know. You do not know. I know because I was in the room, Thomas said, and his voice cracked, and that stopped her cold. I was in that room, Em. I sat there and let Richard Hayes tell that story, and I did not open my mouth because I had 11 months to retirement and a daughter in college, and I told myself it was already decided. That's the truth. That's my truth. And I've carried it every day for 8 years, and I am not calling to be forgiven. I'm calling because 22 people are going to die in the next 4 hours. Emily's throat had gone tight. Then that's on the people who left them there. Yes, Thomas said, it is, and you know exactly how that feels. She didn't speak. Em, he said quietly, those soldiers down in that bowl don't know your story. They've never heard your name. They don't know the lies they told about you. They don't know there was a review or a folder or a colonel with a nice smile. They only know one thing. They know they're alone. The kitchen was very quiet. Emily could hear the pipes. She could hear the refrigerator. She could hear somewhere far down inside herself a door she had nailed shut 8 years ago starting to move. That's a low thing to say to me, she whispered. I know. That's the lowest thing you could possibly have said. I know, Thomas said. I've had 19 hours to find something lower, and I couldn't. She sat on that floor and she thought about the ditch outside Kandahar. 9 days. She thought about how on the 6th day she had understood in a way that had never left her that being forgotten and being dead that are different only in the paperwork. 22, she said, 22. Names. Give me their names, Thomas. If you're going to do this to me, don't hand me a number. Give me the names. There was a pause and then the sound of paper. Brooks Nathan, Captain, Collins Sarah, Sergeant Medic, Miller Jacob, Private First Class, 19 years old. This is his second deployment week. Ortiz, Kowalski, Feeney, Dupree. Stop, Emily said. Torres, Bright. Thomas, stop. He stopped. She was crying now silently the way she'd learned to do it in the ditch. No shoulders, no sound, just water on her face going nowhere. There's a problem, she said. There are about 40 problems. There's one specific problem, and you're not saying it, which is how I know it's true. Who is running this operation? Thomas didn't answer. Thomas? The valley falls under a regional task force. Whose task force? Say his name. A breath. Hayes, Thomas said. Brigadier General Richard Hayes. Emily laughed. It came out of her wrong, a single ugly bark of a sound in an empty kitchen. General. 2 years ago. General Richard Hayes. Yes. He built a career on my body, Emily said. He climbed out of that room on my back, and now he has a star. Yes. And you want me to fly across the world and go to work for him? No, Thomas said. I want you to go to work for Jacob Miller, who is 19 and who has been carrying a man with a shattered pelvis for 6 hours because his captain asked him to. Emily put her forehead against her knee. Outside, the wind came off the ridge. She could hear it in the eaves. 11 right to left with a stutter. Does Hayes know you're calling me? The silence that followed was so long that she thought the line had dropped. Thomas. No, he said. He doesn't know. He knows somebody's calling somebody. He does not know it's you. And when he finds out, then he finds out, Thomas said, in about 4 hours when a Black Hawk that isn't on his manifest puts a shooter that isn't in his system onto a ridge that isn't in his plan. Emily lifted her head. You're going to lose your pension. Probably, Gary. You're going to lose more than that. Thomas said, I lost more than that 8 years ago in a room with no windows. I just kept getting paid. She stood up. She didn't decide to. She just found herself standing, one hand on the counter, and the whole architecture she'd spent 8 years building was still there. The range, the town carol in her jaw, the one stoplight, the two churches, and she looked at all of it very clearly and understood that it had never been a life. It had been a waiting room. Where? She said. Thomas made a sound she'd never heard him make. Bozeman, he said. There's a Gulf Stream on the ground in 50 minutes. It's not ours. Don't ask. What do I bring? Nothing. Everything's staged. Thomas, I bring my own. And there's no time for a case. There's no time for a manifest. There's no... Thomas. Her voice had changed. He heard it change. It went somewhere flat and quiet and 8 years old. I bring my own rifle. That's the price. That's the whole price. You want the shot, you get the shooter, and the shooter comes with her own glass. Are we clear? A beat. 50 minutes, Thomas said. She was on the road in 14. The rifle case in the truck bed had not been opened in 6 years. She had told herself many times that she kept it out of laziness, that it was easier than selling, that it was just a thing in a closet, like anybody has things in closets. That was a lie too. She'd cleaned it every 11 weeks. The Gulf Stream was cold and mostly empty and had 2 pilots who did not introduce themselves and 1 civilian in a fleece who kept looking at her and then looking away. Somewhere over the Dakotas, the civilian finally spoke. Ma'am, are you her? Emily didn't open her eyes. Am I who? Walker. She opened her eyes then. Why? The man swallowed. He was maybe 26. My instructor at Benning used to tell us about a shot in Nuristan. He'd put the data up on the board and make us solve it, and nobody ever could, and then he'd say, a captain did this in 11 seconds with a broken elbow, and then he'd erase the board, and he'd never say who. That's a nice story, Emily said. Then in my 3rd week, somebody told me who it was, and they said she washed out. They said she cracked. Emily looked at him for a long moment. What's your name? Deschler, ma'am. Deschler, in about 6 hours, you're going to have a decision to make about which story you tell people. Try to make it on purpose. He didn't say anything else for 2 hours. At the refuel stop, Thomas got on the line. And we have a problem. Only one, we're doing great. Hayes knows. Emily stood on freezing concrete under a wing with a phone against her ear and felt something in her go very still and very warm, at the same time the way it used to go right before the trigger. How? Somebody in flight ops flagged the tail number. He's been on the phone for 20 minutes. He's called it an unauthorized insertion of an unqualified civilian into an active battle space. He's using the word liability like a hammer. Is he going to stop it? He's trying. He's got a 2-star on the phone right now, and he is being extremely persuasive. And here's the thing you need to understand. He's not wrong on paper. You're a civilian. You have no clearance, no status, no current qual, no chain of custody on that weapon. Everything he's saying is technically accurate. Then why hasn't the plane turned around? Because the 2-star asked him one question, Thomas said. He asked General if we say no, who's your shooter? Emily closed her eyes, and Hayes said the mission profile is unrealistic and the loss should be accepted. The wind moved across the concrete. He said that out loud, Emily said. He said it out loud on a recorded line in front of 9 officers. He said, quote, the loss should be accepted. 22 people. 22 people. Emily opened her eyes and looked at the runway, lights going off into the dark. And something happened in her chest that she had not felt in 8 years and had in truth missed like a limb. Thomas, she said, get me on that ridge. She was in the air for 6 more hours. She did not sleep. She sat with the case across her knees and she did math. Not on paper. In her head, the way she used to running the whole envelope, temperature and altitude, and the way cold air makes a bullet act like it's suddenly heavier, the way a valley at night breathes in one direction and out the other. Thomas fed her numbers over a secure line every 20 minutes, and she took them and turned them into a shape. At hour 4, he came on and his voice was different. Brooks is talking. Put him through. That's not. Put him through, Thomas. There was a click and a hiss, and then a voice that had been talking for 19 hours came through the aircraft's headset like it was coming up out of a well. Say again, any station, this is Ranger 6. We are in the bull. We are effective. We have 9 walking. We have 6 that can shoot from a fixed position. We have 7 that cannot move. I say again, 7 that cannot move, requesting. He stopped. There was a long, ragged breath. Questing anything, Captain Nathan Brooks said. Anybody. I'll take anything. Emily pressed her hand flat against the wall of the aircraft. Ranger 6, she said, this is Overwatch. The silence on the other end lasted 3 full seconds. Say again your call sign. Overwatch. Overwatch, I don't have you on any list. That's right. Overwatch, Brooks said slowly. Are you a person or are you a computer? Because I've been talking to a lot of nothing for a long time and I'm not sure anymore. Emily heard herself smile. She had no idea her face still did that. I'm a person, Ranger 6. Where are you? About 4 hours out. Another silence. Overwatch, Brooks said, and his voice broke apart in the middle of it. We don't have 4 hours. Yes, you do. Ma'am. Nathan, Emily said, listen to me. There's a road on your northeast. There's a heavy vehicle on it. It has to come through a cut at about 600 meters from your position, and it can't turn around in that cut. That's their whole plan. They're going to walk it in and sit it in that cut, and then it's over. Correct. There was a pause. How do you know that? Because that's what I do, Emily said. She heard him breathe. Yes, ma'am, Brooks said. That's correct. Then here's what happens. That vehicle is going to take longer than they think because that cut is narrow and it's dark, and they're going to be careful with it because it's the most expensive thing they own. That gives you 4 hours, not 5. 4. You're going to spend those 4 hours doing exactly one thing. What's that? Not dying, Emily said. Everything else is my problem. Somebody behind Brooks laughed. It was a terrible sound, exhausted and cracked open. But it was a laugh, and it went out over a broken antenna into a mountain bowl where 22 people had spent 19 hours believing that nobody in the world knew they existed. Overwatch, Brooks said. Copy, not dying. That's a mission we can execute. Thomas came back on 90 seconds later. Yeah. You just told 22 Rangers that help is coming. I did. You understand what that does? You understand that if you miss, if the wind's wrong, if the insert goes bad, you didn't just fail them. You made them hope first. Emily looked out the window at nothing. Thomas, she said, I've been the person nobody called. I know exactly what I just did. I did it on purpose. At hour 5, the headset clicked and it was not Thomas. Miss Walker? Her whole body went cold and calm. General. So it's true, Richard Hayes said. He sounded exactly the same. 8 years a star on his collar, and he sounded exactly the same, patient and warm and reasonable, the voice of a man reading the last page. I have to tell you, when they said your name, I laughed. I want you to know that. I actually laughed out loud. That's a lot of feeling for a rifle. A soft chuckle. You remember that? I'm flattered. I remember all of it. I'm sure you do. That's always been your problem, Walker. You're a very precise woman with a very poor sense of proportion. A pause. Let me be extremely clear with you, because I don't want there to be any confusion later when there are lawyers. You are not a soldier. You have no rank. You have no authority. You are a civilian with a hunting rifle who has been placed on an aircraft by a sentimental old man who is about to lose everything he has. You are not a rescue, Guastuam. You are a symptom. Is that all? No, Hayes said, and his voice dropped, and for the first time in 8 years, Emily heard something underneath it. Not cruelty, fear. You are a temporary solution, he said. That's what you are. And when this is over, whatever happens down there, whatever the outcome, the record will show that a civilian without qualification inserted herself into a failing operation. That's the sentence, Walker. That's the whole sentence. Everything else is just details, and I am extremely good at details. Emily sat very still. General, she said, can I ask you one question? By all means. If I'm nothing, why are you on this line? The silence stretched out. You threw me away, Emily said quietly. 8 years ago, you threw me away, and you did it easy, and you went to sleep that night, and you've slept every night since. I know that. I've thought about it for 8 years, sitting in a kitchen in a town you've never heard of. Walker, that was your mistake, she said. Not because I'm coming back, because you never checked whether I landed. And she cut the communication. Her hands, she noticed, were not shaking. They had not shaken in 8 years, and it had never once mattered. And now, at 39,000 feet, over the roof of the world, it mattered more than anything had ever mattered in her life. Deschler in the fleece was staring at her. Ma'am, he said, was that a general? It was. You hung up on a general. Emily unlatched the case across her knees. Deschler, she said, he stopped being a general about 40 seconds ago. Right now, he's just a man who told 9 officers that 22 Americans were an acceptable loss, and there's a recording of it, and he doesn't know yet that he's already lost. She opened the case. The rifle lay in the foam exactly where it had lain for 6 years, cleaned every 11 weeks by a woman who told everyone, including herself, that she had made peace. Ma'am, Deschler said, can I ask you something? Ask. Are you scared? Emily lifted the rifle out and felt her hands close around it, and she felt 8 years of Montana fall off her shoulders like a coat she'd never wanted. Deschler, she said, for 8 years I've been scared. Every single day. Scared somebody would find out who I was. Scared they wouldn't. Scared I'd die in that town, and the only thing anybody would ever know about me is a lie in a folder. She worked the bolt. It ran like water. This isn't scared, she said. This is the first time I've been awake. 40 minutes later, the aircraft went dark and dropped, and somewhere below them, in a bowl in the Hindu Kush, Captain Nathan Brooks keyed a broken radio for the 400th time and said the same words he'd been saying for 19 hours. Any station, this is Ranger 6. And for the first time, a voice came back. Ranger 6, Emily Walker said. Overwatch, I'm here. 0412 local. Ranger 6, say your status. Overwatch, my status is that I don't believe you're real. That's fair. Say it anyway. Nathan Brooks laughed, and it came apart halfway through into something that wasn't a laugh at all. 22, he said. Still 22. 9 walking, 6 shooting, 7 down. Collins says 2 of the 7 are on a clock. She won't tell me the number because she thinks I'll do something stupid with it. She's right. Excuse me? She's right, Nathan. If she gives you a number, you'll spend the next hour doing math instead of leading. Let her carry it. There was a silence on the line, and in it, Emily could hear a woman's voice in the background, sharp and fast, saying something about pressure, saying it twice. Overwatch, Brooks said quieter. How do you know my medic? I don't. Then how? Because there's a medic in every bowl, Emily said. And she always knows first, and she always lies about it, and she's always the last one anybody thanks. Behind Brooks, the woman's voice stopped. Then it came closer, and a new voice was on the radio, flat and hard, and utterly out of patience. Overwatch, this is Ranger Medic. Who is this? That's not a question I can answer on this net. I don't care about the net. I've got Feeney's blood on my sleeves up to the elbow, and I've been telling him he's fine for 6 hours, and if there's a voice in my radio that's going to lie to me too, then I'd rather have the quiet back. Emily let a beat go by. Sergeant Collins. Yes. I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone says that. Then here's the truth, and you're going to hate it. I'm one person. I'm 80 minutes out. When I get there, I'm going to be on a ridge with no spotter, and the first thing I do is going to tell every enemy in that valley exactly where I am, and after that it becomes a race between how fast I can work and how fast they can climb. I can't get you out. I can't get you a helicopter. I can't get Feeney a surgeon. All I can do is make the next 4 hours cost them more than they're willing to pay. The line hissed. Okay, Sarah Collins said, that's it. Ma'am, that's the first time in 19 hours anybody on the other end of this radio has told me what they can't do. Everything before that was people promising. I'll take you. 0421. The Black Hawk came in low and blacked out, and the crew chief was screaming numbers at her that she didn't need, and Emily sat in the door with her legs out in nothing and her hands around the case, and did the only thing she'd ever been good at, which was becoming very calm at exactly the wrong moment. 60 seconds, the crew chief yelled. Copy. Ma'am, it's a hover. We're not touching. It's 4 feet, maybe, and the wind's doing something I don't like. Copy. Ma'am, are you even listening? I'm listening to the wind, Emily said. You're louder than it is. Stop that. He shut up. Thomas Reed's voice came through her earpiece, thin-threaded through a satellite, and 40 years of a career he'd just set on fire. Kinda busy. 30 seconds. I need to tell you something first. Tell me after. There might not be an after, Thomas said, and you're going to need this before you're on that ridge, not after. Emily closed her eyes. Say it. Hayes just declared the valley an active exclusion zone. The rotors chewed the air. Say that again. He signed it 4 minutes ago. The valley is now an exclusion zone under his authority, which means any airframe entering that airspace without his release is unauthorized, which means the bird you're on is unauthorized, which means the shooter on that bird is unauthorized. Thomas, I'm 40 seconds from the ground. I know. And listen to me. If you get off that helicopter, you're not covered by anything. Not the Army, not the Guard, not a contract, not one piece of paper on this earth. If you get hurt up there, you're a woman from Montana who wandered into a war. If you kill somebody up there, you're a civilian who killed somebody in a foreign country. There is no version of this where you come home clean. Emily opened her eyes. Thomas? Yeah. Did he do it to stop me? Or did he do it so that if I succeed, it doesn't count? The pause went on too long. Both, Thomas said. Yeah, Emily said. That's what I thought. 10 seconds, the crew chief screamed. I need you to say you understand what happens to you, Yisaman. Thomas, Emily said, I understood 8 years ago in a room with no windows. Nothing new has happened. She went out the door, 0423. The ridge took her ankle, not badly. Enough. She went down on her side and scree, with the case under her like a body she was protecting, and she lay there for 4 seconds, counting the ways she could have died in the last one, and then she got up. Overwatch is down, she said. Overwatch is up. The Black Hawk was already gone. That was the part that got people she remembered. Not the drop, the leaving. The sound going away and taking the entire world with it. She didn't watch it go. She'd done that once years ago and she'd never done it again. 0431. Ranger 6. Go Overwatch. I'm on the ridge. Emily heard through a broken antenna from 600 vertical meters away, 22 people react. It wasn't a cheer. That was the thing she'd remember. It was a sound like a room full of people putting something down. Overwatch say again you are physically on the ridge. I'm lying in your rocks, Nathan. Which rocks? Northwest of you. You can't see me and neither can they, and let's keep it that way. Overwatch, Brooks said, and his voice did something. You're one person. Yes, you're one person. Nathan, are you going to say it a third time, or are you going to give me a picture? She heard him swallow. Copy. Picture. Northeast, the vehicle you called. It's still coming. Slow. They've got dismounts walking it in like you said. East high ground machine gun position. That's the one killing us. That's the one that put Feeney down and Torres down. And that's the one that's been walking rounds across us every 11 minutes like a metronome, like they're bored, like. Nathan. Yes, ma'am. Breathe, he breathed. South, they've got maybe 15 in Awadi. They're not pushing. I think they're waiting for the vehicle. West is the river gap, and it's covered from both sides, and that's how we die if we run. Emily was already moving elbows belly 30 centimeters at a time into a hollow between two rocks she'd picked from the air before her feet ever touched. How many 11-minute cycles have you counted? Ma'am, the metronome, the gun that's bored, how many cycles? I don't. Miller, a voice said. Oswald, young, very young. Sir, it's 103. Emily stopped moving. Say that name again. Private Miller, ma'am, the young voice said, and it was shaking so badly the radio barely carried it. Jacob, I've been counting. Since 2300, it's 103 cycles, and it's not 11 minutes. It's 11 minutes and about 20 seconds, and it's been getting shorter since about number 80. It's like 10:40 now, and I don't know if that means anything. I didn't have anything else to do while I was. He stopped. While you were what? Emily said. Carrying Sergeant Dupree, ma'am. Emily lay in the rocks with her face against her forearm and felt something crack open in her chest that had been sealed for 8 years. Jacob. Ma'am, that means everything, she said. You just did a spotter's job for 19 hours with no scope and no training and nobody asking. Do you understand what you just gave me? No, ma'am. You gave me their ammunition, state their fatigue and their timeline. The cycle's shortening because they're getting excited. They're getting excited because they know the vehicle's coming, which means they think it's close. There was a silence on the net. Then Brooks, Overwatch. How close? Ask Jacob. Ma'am. Jacob, last cycle. How long ago? 9 minutes, ma'am, maybe 9.5. Emily got her elbow under the rifle and put her eye to the glass, and the whole world narrowed into a tube. Nathan, she said, in about 90 seconds, that gun is going to talk. When it does, everybody puts their face in the dirt and nobody moves, and I mean nobody. Not for anything, not for a friend, not for a scream. Say yes. Yes. Say it to them. She heard him say it. She heard him say it in the voice of a man who had been saying things for 19 hours to people who were running out of reasons to listen, and she heard 21 people say yes back, and it was the ugliest, most beautiful sound she had heard in 8 years. 0439. The machine gun opened up. Emily didn't look at the Rangers. She looked at the muzzle flash. 1,140 meters, give or take, and the give and the take were the entire job. She ran it. Cold air, dense air, a bullet that would sit down harder than it wanted to. The valley breathing out, the stutter at the 200 mark that she'd heard in Montana and heard here and understood was the same wind everywhere. The same wind she'd been reading since she was 19 years old. The same wind that did not care what was in a folder in Virginia. Overwatch, Brooks said. We're taking it, we're... Nathan. Yes. Watch the East gun. Ma'am, I can't do anything about the East. I know, Emily said. Just watch it. 0441 in 6 seconds. She let out half a breath and let the rest of 8 years go with it. The rifle went. 0441 in 8 seconds. The East gun stopped. Nobody said anything for 4 full seconds. Then a voice that wasn't Brooks, that wasn't anyone she'd been introduced to, said, "What was that?" And another voice said, "It stopped." And another said, "It stopped, Kowalski, it stopped." And Nathan Brooks keyed the radio and Emily could hear him trying to get his mouth to work. Overwatch. Go. Say status. East guns down. Overwatch, that's 1,100 meters. 1140. In the dark. Nathan, is there a question in there? There was a sound on the other end that she genuinely could not identify. She realized later that it was a man laughing and crying at exactly the same time with a radio against his mouth. No, ma'am, Brooks said. There's no question. 0443. Overwatch, this is Reed. Busy, Thomas. The whole floor, just watch that. There's a drone feed. There are 9 officers in this room and they just watched a machine gun position stop existing. And the room, the room. Thomas, is Hayes in the room? Yes. What's he doing? A pause. He's not saying anything, Thomas said. He's just watching the screen. He hasn't moved. Nobody's looking at the screen anymore. They're looking at him, and he knows it, and he hasn't moved. Emily was already shifting. 12 meters left, New Hollow. The old one was dead now. It had been dead the instant she fired it, just didn't know it yet. Thomas, tell the room something for me. Anything. Tell them 103. What? A 19-year-old private named Jacob Miller counted 103 fire cycles in the dark while carrying a man with a broken pelvis. And that's how I got that gun. Not me, him. Say that out loud in that room right now with Hayes standing there. Thomas didn't answer. Thomas. I'm doing it, he said, and his voice had gone thick. And then she heard him distantly off mic saying it to a room, and she heard the room go absolutely silent. 0446. Overwatch Ranger 6. Go. South Wadi's moving. How many? All of them. They're not waiting anymore. They're coming. 50, more like 20. Emily flattened out. Nathan, listen to me carefully. That's not an assault. That's a bill. A what? They just lost a crew, served weapon to something they can't see and can't find. They're not attacking you. They're making me choose. If I work the Wadi, I'm not watching the cut. If I watch the cut, they walk into your position and it's a knife fight and you lose because you've got 7 men who can't stand up. There was a pause. Overwatch, Brooks said slowly. What are you going to do? I'm going to disappoint them. 0448 through 0453, she worked. She would not be able to describe it afterward. Not to the board, not to the reporters, not to Carol from the range who asked once and never again. There was nothing to describe. There was a tube, and there was math, and there was a woman doing arithmetic at a speed that had once made 3 instructors at Benning argue for an hour about whether the range data was real, and every 4 or 5 seconds the arithmetic came out and something in the Wadi stopped being a problem. She fired 11 times. The Wadi went to ground on the 5th. The other 6 were for the ones who thought going to ground was enough. 0453. Overwatch, Brooks's voice. Go. They stopped. I know. Overwatch, they're not moving. They're lying there. Some of them are lying there and they're not hit. They're not moving. That's right. Why? Emily rolled onto her back for 4 seconds and looked up at a sky with more stars in it than anybody in Montana would believe. Because they just learned that standing up is a decision, she said, and now every one of them has to make it personally. That takes a while. She rolled back over. Nathan, this is the window. Right now. Everything you've been holding, hold it different. Your 7 that can't move, where are they? Center, in a depression. It's the only cover we've got. That depression is a grave, and you know it, because the vehicle is going to put rounds into it from the cut in about 40 minutes, and that depression is exactly the shape of a target. Move them. Move them where? Northeast. Toward the cut. Toward the cut. Overwatch. Nathan, you're telling me to carry 7 men who can't walk toward the thing that's coming to kill us? Yes. That's insane. Nathan, it's the only place they won't shoot, Emily said, because it's where their own vehicle has to come through and they will not put rounds on their own axis of advance in the dark. There's a fold in the ground about 80 meters northeast of you. It's maybe a meter deep. It's got a lip on the west side. Do you see it? Silence. Do you see it, Nathan? Ma'am, how are you seeing my ground better than I am? Because you've been in it for 20 hours and I've been looking at it for 11 minutes, Emily said. That's not a criticism. That's why they put somebody on a ridge. A long breath. Copy, we move. Nathan, one more thing. Go. You're going to do it in the next 6 minutes because in 6 minutes and change that metronome's replacement is going to figure out how to work a gun and the window closes. 0456. She heard it happen. That was the strange part, the part that stayed with her. She couldn't see them, not really, not as people. She could see shapes moving in the greenwash of the glass, but she could hear it through a broken antenna held open by somebody who never let go of the key, and what she heard was 22 Americans deciding to believe a voice. Miller, you got his legs. Yes, sir. Miller, you good. Yes, sir. Jacob. Sir, I'm good. Sir, I promise I'm good. Kowalski, cover, Bright and me. We're going in 2 groups. Collins, you go with the second. Negative, I go with Feeney. Collins. Sir, I go with Feeney or I don't go. Sergeant. Sir, with respect, you can write me up when we're home. And then quieter, so quiet, Emily almost lost it under the wind. Sir, if we get home. Emily keyed the mic. Sarah. Go. When, not if. Ma'am, you don't have to. Sarah, I'm not comforting you. I'm correcting you. You're a sergeant with 7 casualties and 19 people listening to every word out of your mouth. You don't get to say if out loud. Say it in your head all you want, not out loud. There was a pause. Copy, ma'am, Sarah Collins said, and her voice had changed. When? 0501. The replacement gun found them. Emily had been waiting for it, and she still almost missed it because they'd moved it. They'd moved it 50 meters and put it in a spot she'd have picked herself, and she had a half second of pure professional respect, and then she killed it. But it got rounds off first. She heard it on the net, not a scream. Worse, a grunt, and then somebody saying a name very fast 3 times. Ranger 6 report. Nothing. Ranger 6 report. Nothing. Nathan. The silence went on for 11 seconds. Emily lay in the rocks and did not breathe. Overwatch. It was Collins. 6 is hit. Emily's hands were perfectly steady. She noticed that with a kind of distant disgust. How bad? Shoulder. Through and through. He's fine. He's not fine. He's talking too much, ma'am. I need to work, and he won't stop talking. Put him on. Ma'am. Sarah put him on. It'll be faster than fighting him. A scuffle. Then Brooks in his voice was wrong, high fast. Overwatch, I'm up. I'm good. We got them into the fold, all 7 Duprees and Feeneys and where? Nathan. Yeah. You're in shock. I'm fine. You're in shock, and in about 90 seconds, you're going to want to do something brave, and I need you to not do it. Overwatch. Say it back to me. I'm not going to do anything brave. Good. Now give the net to Collins and let her put her hands in you and shut up for 6 minutes. There was a pause, and then Brooks made a sound that was almost a laugh. Overwatch, has anyone ever told you that you're kind of a hard person to be rescued by? Yes, Emily said. A general did actually, about 4 hours ago. 0504. Thomas. Something's happening in the room. I'm working. Listen, Hayes just tried to pull the drone. Emily stopped. Say that again. He just gave an order to reposition the ISR asset off the valley. He said it was needed for a developing situation 40 kilometers east. There is no developing situation 40 kilometers east. Am I checked? There's nothing there. There's a road and a goat. He's blinding the room. He's blinding the room, Thomas said, because the room is watching. Because the room has been watching for 20 minutes and the room has stopped being 9 officers and started being 9 witnesses. Emily put her forehead down on the back of her hand. Did it work? No, Thomas said, and there was something in his voice she had never heard in 30 years of knowing him. Something bright and awful. Why not? Because a major named Deschler stood up. Emily's head came up. Say that name again? Deschler, young guy. He's not even supposed to be in the room he flew in on your bird. He's some kind of liaison. He stood up and he said, Sir, with respect, I want that order in writing. And Hayes said, what? And Deschler said, Sir, I want it in writing with a timestamp and I want it logged because there are 22 people under that camera and I'd like the record to show who moved it and why. Emily could not speak. And there were 9 officers in this room and 8 of them were looking at the floor. And this kid, this 26-year-old kid, what did Hayes do? He rescinded the order, Thomas said. He rescinded it in about 4 seconds and he laughed and he said, of course, Major. No need to be dramatic, and he laughed, and nobody laughed with him. Nobody. The room just sat there and let him laugh alone. Emily lay in the rocks 11,000 feet up on the roof of the world and closed her eyes. Thomas? Yeah. Tell Deschler he made his decision on purpose. What? He'll know, she said. Just tell him. 0508. Overwatch Ranger 6. You're supposed to be shutting up. Collins is done. She says I'm going to have a great scar and a worse attitude. A breath. Overwatch the vehicles in the cut. Emily swung the glass. There it was. Squat patient ugly walking through a narrow place with 8 men around it like it was something holy. I see it. Overwatch, can you? No. The word landed on the net like a dropped plate. Say again now. No, Nathan. I can't kill that with this. That's not a rifle problem. It's armored on the front and the sides, and it's 100 and something at the glacis, and I've got a 30-inch barrel and a bullet that weighs less than a hamburger. If I shoot it, I annoy it, and I tell it where I am, and then it drives up the ridge and kills me, and then there's nobody watching you at all. Silence. Then what do? Brooks said. We make it stop being patient. How? Nathan. How many of those 8 dismounts around that thing do you think signed up to be 20 meters from the only thing in this valley that a sniper wants to shoot? There was a long pause. Oh, Brooks said, 059 through 0514. She took the dismounts. Not fast, that was the whole point. Slow, deliberate, one every 90 seconds from a distance and a direction that made no geometric sense to anybody down there. So that 8 men walking beside a vehicle in a narrow cut had 90 full seconds each to stand in the dark and understand that they were next. And there was nothing they could do about it and nowhere to go because the cut was narrow and the vehicle was slow and the vehicle was the reason they were there. On the 4th one, the vehicle stopped. On the 5th, 2 of the remaining 4 ran. Emily let them. Overwatch. Brooks's voice was almost a whisper. It stopped. It's just sitting in the cut. I know. Why won't it come? Because the driver just figured out that the only way through that cut is with his hatch closed, Emily said. And with his hatch closed, he can't see anything. And the last 4 people who could see for him are either dead or running. So he's blind. He's blind, and he's alone, and he's sitting in a hallway, Emily said. And in about 4 minutes, he's going to do the only thing a scared man in a hallway can do. What's that? Back up. 0516. It backed up. 22 Americans in a mountain bowl in the Hindu Kush heard the engine note change, and then they heard it go the wrong way. And Emily heard through a broken antenna what happens when people who have been dying for 20 hours find out that the thing coming to kill them just quit. Somebody screamed. It wasn't a word. Somebody else was saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," on an open mic and didn't know it. And under all of it, a 19-year-old private named Jacob Miller was saying over and over to nobody, "She's real. I told you she was real." 0517. Thomas's voice was shaking. The room. Thomas. They're standing up. The officers. They're standing up. They're standing at the screen. There's a colonel over here with his hand over his mouth. Thomas, where's Hayes? The pause was very short. He left, Thomas said. Emily lay very still. Say that again. He left the room, 90 seconds ago. He got up and he walked out and he didn't say anything to anybody. And there it was. The thing she had not let herself feel in 8 years, the thing she had buried under a shooting range and a stoplight and 2 churches and a woman named Carol with a bad jaw. Not triumph, something colder and much older. Thomas, she said quietly, he's not running. What? He didn't leave because he lost. He left because he's going to do something. And what would he even? Thomas, Emily said, 8 years ago, that man sat in a room and turned 4 dead soldiers into a paperwork problem in about a week. He has never once in his life responded to losing by losing. He's on a phone right now. Find out who he called. 0519. Overwatch Ranger 6. Go. Ma'am, my men want to know your name. Emily didn't answer. Overwatch. Nathan, that's not. Ma'am, with respect. Brooks's voice was steadier now, and that was somehow worse. I've got 21 people in a fold in the ground who spent 20 hours believing the United States Army had forgotten they existed. And then a voice came out of a broken radio and killed a machine gun at 1,100 meters and moved us to ground I couldn't see and made an armored vehicle turn around, and they want to know who that is. And I'd like to be able to tell them. Emily lay in the rocks with her eye against the glass and her heart doing something in her chest she had not authorized. Nathan, if I tell you my name, it changes how you hear me. Ma'am? It does. Trust me. Overwatch, I've got a private over here who counted 103 machine gun cycles for you in the dark with the man's blood soaking through his sleeves. He wants a name. I'm not asking as a captain. I'm asking as the guy who has to look at him. Emily closed her eyes. She thought about a room with no windows. She thought about a smile. She thought about 8 years. Walker, she said, Captain Emily Walker. The silence that came back was different from all the other silences. It went on for 6 seconds. Say again, Brooks said, and his voice had gone completely flat. You heard me. Ma'am, say again your name. Emily Walker. Another silence. Then distantly off mic, she heard someone say no. And someone else say, that's not the same, that's a different. And someone else, very clearly in a young voice she recognized, wait, that's the one they told us about at Benning. Emily lay on a mountain and felt 8 years of a lie at arrive in a valley 11,000 miles from the room where it was written. Overwatch, Brooks said, Captain Walker. Go. They told us about you. I know. They told us. He stopped. She could hear him breathing. In my Q course, there was a block on operational stress. Your name was in it, not the file they didn't give him. Us the file they gave us the story. They said there was a captain, a sniper, one of the best they ever had, and she cracked under pressure and lost control on a critical mission, and they had to take her out of the fight. They used you as the example, ma'am. You were the warning. Yes, Emily said. They told us that for 8 years. Yes. Ma'am. His voice broke completely. Ma'am, I'm looking at 7 men who are alive because of a warning. Emily did not answer because she could not. Overwatch, Brooks said. Captain Walker. Ma'am, what actually happened? Nathan, that's not. Ma'am, I've got 21 people listening to this net, and every single one of them is awake right now. And I need you to tell me what actually happened. Because if I go home and I find out that we were taught to be afraid of the person who saved us, then I don't know what I'm going home to. Emily lay in the rocks with her hands on a rifle she'd cleaned every 11 weeks for 6 years while telling herself she'd made peace. I found some numbers that didn't match, she said. Times on a report, a rescue window that got moved back by 90 minutes so a timeline would look better than it was. 4 men died in a valley waiting for a bird that had already been reallocated. Nobody breathed. I reported it, she said. I did it exactly the way they teach you. Up the chain, in writing, with the logs attached. And the man who signed the report told me that what happened is whatever ends up in the folder. Who? Brooks said. Nathan. Ma'am, who? And Emily Walker, lying on a ridge above 22 people she had never met, said the name out loud for the first time in 8 years on an open net on a recorded line to a broken antenna in front of God, and 9 officers and a young major named Deschler who had stood up in a room. Richard Hayes, she said. The net went silent. Then Thomas Reed's voice came through her earpiece very quietly, and he was not talking to her. He said. I found out who he called. Thomas? He called the Air Force, Thomas said. He just requested a strike package on the valley. Emily stopped breathing. He what? He's calling it a denial mission. He's saying the position is compromised and overrun, and the assets on the ground are unrecoverable, and the site needs to be denied to the enemy. Thomas? He told them there are no friendlies in the bowl. The wind came across the ridge, 11 right to left with a stutter at the 200 mark. And Emily Walker lay in the rocks and understood completely and finally exactly what kind of man had ended her life in a room with no windows. How long, she said. 26 M0521. 26 minutes, Emily said. 26. Thomas, say the word he used. Which word? He told them there are no friendlies in the bowl. Did he say no friendlies? Or did he say unrecoverable? Because those are 2 different crimes and only one of them has a hole in it. There was a scramble on the other end. Paper, a keyboard, a man breathing too fast for a 63-year-old man. He said both, Thomas said. He said the ground element is assessed as overrun and unrecoverable, and then he said for the purposes of your targeting treat the grid as no friendlies. Emily closed her eyes. For the purposes of your targeting, she repeated. Yes, that's the hole. That's not a hole, that's a hair. Thomas, it's a hair with a timestamp on it, Emily said. He didn't lie to the Air Force. He gave them an assessment. Assessments are opinions. Opinions aren't crimes. That's what he does, Thomas. That's the whole man. He never lies. He just builds a room where the truth can't get in, and then he tells you honestly what he sees in the room. He did it to me in an hour, she said. He's doing it to 22 people in 26 minutes. He's gotten faster. 0522. Overwatch. Brooks. Overwatch, we're still on this net. Emily's stomach dropped through the mountain. Nathan. We heard it. Nathan, how much? All of it, Brooks said. Ma'am, this radio's broken in one direction. It's not broken in the other. Every man in this fold just heard a crony say there's a strike inbound and my name isn't on the friendly list. Emily lay in the rocks and heard under his voice 21 people finding out. Somebody said, that's not no. Somebody said, sir, sir, sir. And a 19-year-old voice, very small, said, is it ours? Nobody answered him. Is it ours? Jacob Miller said again. Sir, is the thing coming ours? Jacob, Brooks said. Son, sir, I just want to know if it's ours. Emily keyed the mic. Jacob. The net went quiet. Ma'am, look at me. Ma'am, I can't see you. That's right, Emily said. You can't see me, and I've been on this ridge for 40 minutes, and in those 40 minutes, how many of you have died? A pause. None, ma'am. Say the number. 0, ma'am. 0, Emily said. 20 hours before I got here, you were losing people every hour. 40 minutes with me, 0. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and I want the honest answer. Do you think a person who did that for 40 minutes is going to let a plane finish it? The silence stretched. No, ma'am, Jacob said. Say it louder. There's 20 people listening to you, and they need your voice more than mine right now. No, ma'am, Jacob Miller said. And it cracked in the middle, and it was still the loudest thing anybody had said on that net in 20 hours. 0523. Thomas. Go. Who's the strike? 2 ship. Rotary escorts out. This is fixed wing. They're already airborne on a different tasking, and they got retasked 11 minutes ago. 11 minutes ago. Yes. Emily's whole body went cold. Bain. Thomas, he called them before he left the room. Silence. Say it back to me. He called them before he left the room, Thomas said slowly. Oh my God, He was on his phone under the table. He was standing there watching you kill that gun, and he was all ready. He wasn't watching me win, Emily said. He was watching me run out of time. That's what that was. That's why he didn't move. Everybody in that room thought he was frozen. He was doing math. I looked right at him. Thomas, everybody looks right at him. That's the trick. 0524. Okay, Emily said. Okay, talk to me. Who can stop it? Not who should, who can? The strike's under a different chain now. Once it's tasked and airborne, it belongs to the air component. To pull it back, you need either the ground commander who requested it, who is Hayes, or you need somebody at the air component to abort on their own authority. So we call the air component. And say what a civilian on an unauthorized aircraft in a declared exclusion zone says there are friendlies. They will not take that call. They will not take it from either. I'm a colonel with 9 months to retirement who just got flagged for putting an unauthorized asset in the air. Then who do they take it from? The ground element. Emily stopped. Say that again. The ground element, Thomas said. The friendlies. If the friendlies check in, if there is a voice on a net that the air component can hear saying, I am in that grid, that's a no strike. That's automatic. That's not a favor, that's a rule. Then have Brooks check in. He can't. His radio's a brick. That antenna's putting out about enough to reach you on that ridge, and that's it. He's been screaming into it for 20 hours, and the only reason you've got him is your line of sight at 600 meters. Emily's mind was going very fast and very cold. Thomas, can you relay? Relay what I'm not on his net. I'm on your earpiece through a satellite that Reed borrowed from a friend who's going to lose his job. There is no bridge, Em. That's the whole tragedy. The Air Force will listen to Brooks and only Brooks, and Brooks cannot reach them. 0525. Overwatch, this is Ranger 6. Nathan Hold. Ma'am, I heard all of that too. Nathan Hold. Ma'am, I've got a thought. Nathan. Ma'am, I've got a thought, and we have 21 minutes, so I'm going to say it. Emily shut her mouth. Say it. The bird that dropped you, Brooks said. The Black Hawk. Where'd it go? Emily's eye came off the glass. Thomas. Working, Thomas said. Working. There are 40 minutes out on the deck, heading back to FOB there. Can they hear the air component? A pause that lasted 100 years. Yes, Thomas said. Yes, they can. They're on a common net, of course they are. Can they hear Brooke? The pause was shorter and much worse. No boyo, Thomas said. They're 40 kilometers out, and Brooks can't reach 40 kilometers. He can barely reach 600 meters. 0526. And then Emily Walker lying in scree on a ridge in the Hindu Kush with a rifle she had cleaned every 11 weeks for 6 years, started laughing. Thomas. What? Brooks can reach 600 meters, she said. Silence. And I have a satellite, she said. Thomas, I'm the bridge. No, you're not on their net. You're on mine. You can't. I don't have to be on their net, Emily said. You are. Thomas, you're sitting in an operations center with 9 officers and a phone and a satellite and a young major with a spine. You can reach the air component. You just can't give them what they need, which is a voice from the ground. Well, I can hear the ground. Nathan Brooks is in my ear right now. So he talks to me and I talk to you and you hold your phone up to the room and the room hears an American captain in that grid saying his own name. Thomas Reed did not speak for 4 seconds. That's not a valid check-in, he said. Thomas? And that's not procedure. That's a human being repeating another human being. That's a game of telephone. They'll never. Thomas, is there a rule that says a no-strike call has to be pretty? No. Is there a rule that says an American voice in a grid gets ignored if it arrives by an ugly road? No, Thomas said, and his voice was breaking. No, there isn't. Then get me the air component, Emily said, and get that room to hear it, all 9 of them, because Thomas hears the part Hayes hasn't thought about. What? He built a room where the truth couldn't get in, Emily said, and then he walked out of it and left 9 witnesses inside. 0527. Ranger 6. Go. Nathan, in about 90 seconds, you're going to talk to me, and I'm going to repeat every word you say into a satellite, and a man in Bagram is going to hold a phone up to a room, and that's how 22 people live. Do you understand what I need from you? Names, Brooks said immediately. Emily's throat closed. Say that again. You need names, ma'am, not a call sign, not a grid. They can fake a grid. Nobody can fake 22 names in 20 hours. A breath. Ma'am, you asked Colonel Reed for our names on the phone in Montana. Didn't you? Emily could not answer. Ma'am, he told us, Brooks said. He told us on the net an hour ago while you were working the Wadi. He said the shooter wouldn't get on the plane until somebody read her the roster. Nobody spoke on that net for 3 full seconds. Then Sarah Collins said quietly, that's what that was. Sarah, ma'am, I asked you at 0421 why you weren't lying to me, Collins said, and you said you wouldn't. And I've been thinking about it for an hour while I had my hands inside Feeney. You already knew our names. You knew them before you got on the airplane. You've known my name this whole time and you let me introduce myself. Emily pressed her forehead into the back of her hand. Sarah. Ma'am, why? Because you'd earned it, Emily said. Because I wasn't going to walk into your worst night and act like I already knew you. That's a thing people do to soldiers. They read you off a page and they think that's knowing you. I wasn't going to do that to you. The net was silent. Ma'am, Collins said, and her voice was completely gone. I'm going to need you to stop talking for a second. 0528. Thomas, I have the air component. I have a lieutenant colonel named Vance. He's listening. He is not happy. He's got the tasking in front of him, and it says the grid is overrun, and it says no friendlies, and it's signed by a brigadier general. Put him on the room speaker. What? Thomas, put him on the room speaker. All 9. Every officer in that room hears every word of this. A pause. And if this doesn't work, everyone in this room watches 22 people live, and they'll never. Thomas, that's exactly the point, Emily said. Hayes made a room where nobody would look. I'm going to make a room where nobody can look away. 0529. Ranger 6, this is Overwatch. Check in, slow, rank name, and one thing about yourself that isn't in a file. Go. There was a beat. And then on a broken antenna from a fold in the ground, 80 meters from where an armored vehicle had turned around and run, Captain Nathan Brooks began to read his people into existence. Captain Nathan Brooks, 3rd Battalion, and I've got a daughter named Maddie who's turning 4 in 9 days, and I told her I'd be back for it. Emily said it into the satellite word for word in a flat voice because if she put anything into it at all, she was going to come apart. Sergeant Sarah Collins, I'm a medic. My hands haven't been clean in 21 hours, and I've got 7 men breathing. That shouldn't be. Emily said it. Private First Class Jacob Miller. I'm 19. This is my 2nd week. I counted 103. Emily said it, and her voice went on the last word, and she heard through the satellite 40 kilometers and 1 country away, a room full of officers make a sound. Sergeant Dupree, broken pelvis. Somebody carried me for 6 hours, and I'm going to buy him a truck. Specialist Kowalski, I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, and my mom is going to be so mad about this. Specialist Bright, I'm alive. Sergeant Torres, I'm alive. Feeney. A pause and then thin as paper. Corporal Michael Feeney, and I'd like to state for the record that Sergeant Collins is a liar, and I am not fine. Somebody in that fold laughed a wet-wrecked, disbelieving laugh, and Emily Walker repeated it into a satellite, all of it, the laugh included, and in a room in Bagram, 9 officers heard a dying man make a joke. 22 names. It took 4 minutes and 11 seconds. 0533. Overwatch, this is Vance. Emily's whole body locked. Go Vance. Ma'am, who am I speaking to? You're speaking to a relay. Ma'am, I have a tasking signed by a general officer that says that grid is overrun. And I have a voice coming to me through a colonel's cell phone held up to a speaker, and that voice is telling me 22 names and a 4-year-old's birthday. That's correct. Ma'am, Vance's voice was tight as wire. Do you understand what you're asking me to do? You're asking me to abort a tasked strike on the word of an unverified relay against a signed assessment from a brigadier general in a declared exclusion zone. If you're wrong, I've left an overrun site intact, and that's my career, and possibly worse. If you're right and I don't. Vance. Ma'am, I need something. Give me something, anything. One thing that isn't a voice. Emily's mind went white. 14 minutes. And then she heard herself say very calmly, Vance, do you have eyes on that valley? I've got a drone feed. Ma'am, it's not great. Is it on the bowl? Yes. Then watch the northeast fold, 80 meters northeast of the depression. Ma'am, I'm looking at rocks. Nathan, Emily said, everybody who can move, right now, on my count, stand up. The net exploded. Overwatch, negative, negative. They've still got shooters on the... Nathan. Ma'am, if we stand up in the open. Nathan Brooks, Emily said. For 45 minutes I have told you what to do, and you are all still alive. Stand your people up. Silence. Ma'am. Brooks's voice was shaking. Ma'am, they'll see us. Nathan, Emily said. That's the entire point. 0535. On my count, Emily said. 3. Doom. 2, 1, up. She watched them come out of the ground. 9 men who could stand standing up in the open in a valley full of people who wanted them dead because a voice on a radio told them to, and they had known that voice for 52 minutes. Vance, I see them. Say what you see. Ma'am, I'm looking at, I have 9 personnel upright in the open at the northeast. Are they overrun? Silence. Vance. No, Vance said. No, they are not overrun. Ma'am, they're waving. Emily lay in the rocks and heard herself make a sound she had not made in 8 years. Vance, abort the strike. Ma'am, Vance, look at that screen. There are 9 Americans standing in the open in a grid a general officer told you that was empty. That's not an assessment anymore. That's a picture. Ma'am, I need to. You need to nothing, Emily said. You need to say one word, and then you need to spend the rest of your life being the man who said it. 0536. Nothing. 2 seconds of nothing that went on for a year. Aborting, Vance said. 2 ship, abort, 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 break off, do not engage that grid. I say again, do not engage friendlies in the open. I have visual on friendlies in the open. The fold in the ground erupted. Emily heard 9 grown men come apart 80 meters from where they'd been dying, and she heard a 19-year-old private screaming something that wasn't words, and she heard Sarah Collins say very clearly into an open mic she didn't know was open, "Oh my God, ma'am, ma'am." And she heard through a satellite 40 kilometers away, in a room where 9 officers had been taught for years to look at the floor, a sound that Thomas Reed would describe to her later, much later, and never quite get right. Thomas said, and he was weeping openly and did not care. And they're cheering in the ops center, 9 officers. There's a colonel standing on a chair. 0537. Thomas? Yeah. Get them down. What? Get my Rangers down. They're still standing up in a valley full of people who want to shoot them. Thomas, Nathan. Nathan, get them down. Get down. Get down. 0537 in 40 seconds. The rounds came from the east from a position she hadn't cleared from men who had spent 4 minutes watching 9 Americans stand in the open and celebrate. She got there first. Barely. She got there by a second and a half, and she would think about that second and a half for the rest of her life, and she would never once be able to explain to anybody how she knew to swing the glass east instead of south. 2 shots. The east went quiet. Report, she said. Nathan, report. Nothing. Nathan, we're down, we're all down. Nobody's hit, ma'am, nobody's hit. Emily put her face in the dirt. Ma'am, I'm here. Ma'am, are you okay? Nathan, don't ask me that. Ma'am, don't ask me that right now, Emily said, because I have work to do, and I can't do it if I answer you honestly. 0539. Thomas's voice had changed completely. It had gone quiet. Hayes is back in the room. Emily's hand stopped. Say that again. He walked back in. He's standing there. The room they were cheering, and he walked in and it stopped. Just stopped. Like somebody unplugged it. What's he doing? He's smiling. Emily lay very still. Thomas, listen to me carefully. Is Vance still on your line? Yes. Don't hang up. Whatever happens in the next 4 minutes, do not hang up that phone. And what's he? Thomas, he came back, Emily said. A man like that does not come back into a room he lost. He came back because he already has the next move, and he wants to make it in front of people. And then in her earpiece, over a borrowed satellite in a room full of officers who had just watched 22 Americans get saved by a game of telephone, Emily Walker heard a voice she had waited 8 years to hear. Colonel Reed, is that a cell phone 0540? General, Thomas said, because it looks like a cell phone. Sir. Colonel, I'd like you to hang up that phone. Sir, with respect. Colonel Reed, I am giving you a direct order in front of 8 officers to terminate an unsecured communication with an unauthorized civilian in a declared exclusion zone. Emily lay on a ridge 11,000 feet up and heard the exact sound of a man building a room. Thomas, she said quietly, he's not trying to stop the call. The call already worked. He's making the record. He's putting it on paper. Right now out loud in front of witnesses. Colonel Reed refused a direct order. Colonel Reed maintained an unsecured line to an unauthorized civilian. That's not him losing Thomas. That's him filing. Colonel Hayes said pleasantly, the phone. There was a long silence in that room, and then Thomas Reed said, no, sir. Emily closed her eyes. Say again, Colonel. I said no, sir. Thomas's voice was perfectly steady, and that was the thing that undid her because she had known that man for 30 years, and she had never once heard it steady when it mattered. Sir, at 0536, Lieutenant Colonel Vance of the Air Component aborted a strike on grid coordinates that you assessed as no friendlies. He aborted it because he observed 9 American personnel standing upright in the open in that grid. That is on a recorded feed. That is on his log. That is in the memory of every officer in this room. Colonel Reed, I'm not finished, sir. Colonel, sir, at 0519, you left this room and you contacted the Air Component and you requested a denial mission and you used the phrase for the purposes of your targeting, treat the grid as no friendlies. I have it. Vance has it. It's on his tape, sir, and his tape doesn't work for you. The room did not make a sound. Colonel Reed, Hayes said, and his voice had not moved a millimeter, you are relieved. Yes, sir. You are relieved and you will surrender that phone and you will be escorted. Sir, Thomas said, you can relieve me. You cannot unhear this room. 0542. General, Emily's own voice had not moved a millimeter, you are relieved. Yes, sir. You are relieved and you will surrender that phone and you will be escorted. Sir, Thomas said, you can relieve me. You cannot unhear this room. 0542. General, Emily's own voice coming out of a cell phone speaker into a room in Bagram, and she heard it hit that room like a rock through a window. Silence. General Hayes, she said, do you want to talk to me? A pause. And then unbelievably that patient, warm, reasonable voice. Miss Walker, are you enjoying yourself? No, Emily said, no. No, General, I've got a 19-year-old down there who counted 103 machine gun cycles in the dark while he carried a man with a shattered pelvis, and 11 minutes ago he asked me whether the airplane coming to kill him was ours. So no, I'm not enjoying myself. The room breathed. That's very moving, Hayes said. General, can I ask you something in front of these officers? By all means. When you told Vance to treat the grid as no friendlies, Emily said, did you know Miss Walker? It's a simple question, sir. You've been watching the fight for 40 minutes. You'd watched me kill 2 crew-served weapons. You watched an armored vehicle turn around and run. You watched 22 Americans get moved to better ground. And then you walked out of this room and picked up a phone and said there's nobody down there. I made an assessment based on the information available. General, Emily said the information available was on a screen you were standing in front of. Nothing. Say it, Emily said. Say you didn't know. Say it out loud in this room with these 8 officers listening, and I will never speak your name again for the rest of my life. That's my offer. Say you didn't know. The silence went on for 5 seconds. 6, 7. Sir, a young voice said. Deschler. Sir, she asked you a question. Emily's eyes came open. Major Hayes said you are dismissed. Sir, I'd like that in writing. Major Deschler. Sir, I'd like it in writing with a timestamp, and I'd like it logged same as the drone order at 0504, which the log shows you rescinded 4 seconds after I asked for it. Nobody in that room moved. Sir, Deschler said, I flew in on that airplane. I sat across from her for 6 hours, and she told me I was going to have a decision to make about which story I told people, and she told me to make it on purpose. Thomas Reed somewhere in that room made a sound. So I'm making it on purpose, sir, Deschler said. She asked you a question. Did you know? 0544. Richard Hayes did not answer. Emily lay on a ridge and listened to a man not answer, and she understood something that 8 years in a kitchen in Montana had never taught her. He wasn't refusing. He couldn't. Ah, Emily said softly. Miss Walker? You can't say it, can you? Miss Walker, this conversation is over. You've never said one, have you? She said. Not once, not in that room with no windows, not in 8 years. You've never actually told a lie out loud in your entire career, because a lie can be caught, a lie has a shape, a lie is a thing that exists. So you build the room instead. You move the paper, you choose the words, you say for the purposes of your targeting instead of there's nobody there. You say the review will be thorough instead of I'm going to end her. The room was so quiet she could hear a chair creak. And now there are 8 officers standing here waiting for you to say 4 words, Emily said. I didn't know. 4 words, and you can't, because it would be the first actual lie of your life, and you don't know how. You've never had to. Nobody's ever asked you in front of anybody. Miss Walker. General, they're all looking at you, 0545. Richard Hayes said, I want everyone in this room to understand that this call is unsecured. This individual is a civilian, and nothing said here has any standing whatsoever. And that was the moment. Emily heard it. Thomas heard it. Deschler heard it. 8 officers standing in an operations center in Bagram heard it, and every one of them, later in front of a board, described it almost exactly the same way, which almost never happens. He didn't say he didn't know. He said it wouldn't count. Yeah, Emily said quietly. That's what I thought. 0546. Overwatch Ranger 6. Go, Nathan. Ma'am, is the plane gone? The plane's gone. Ma'am, say it in a full sentence. I need to tell 21 people, and I can't do it if there's a maybe in it. Emily put her hand flat on the rock and felt her own pulse in it. Captain Brooks, she said, the strike is aborted. There is no aircraft inbound on your position. Nobody is dropping anything on you tonight. She heard him turn away from the mic. She heard him say it. She heard what 21 people sound like when somebody tells them the sky isn't going to open. And under it, that same voice, that 19-year-old saying it to himself over and over like a rosary, she's real. I told you. I told you she was real. 0548. Overwatch. Collins. Ma'am, Feeney's crashing. Emily's stomach turned to stone. How long? I don't know. 20 minutes, maybe less. Ma'am, I've got nothing left. I've got no volume. I'm holding a hole shut with my thumb, and I've been doing it for 2 hours. Thomas, on it, Thomas said, and then off mic in a voice she had never heard him use in 30 years. I need a medevac on that grid in 15 minutes or Corporal Michael Feeney dies on this floor in front of all of us. Colonel Reed, Hayes said, you are relieved and you have no authority to. And a voice Emily didn't know said, Sir, with respect, shut up. 0549. M. Thomas. M. We got a bird. Vance found one. 15 minutes. 15. 15. M. But. Say it. They won't come into that bowl with the east and south uncleared. They'll hover and take fire, and they've got a medic and a crew, and they will not put a helicopter in a hot bowl on a maybe. Emily was already moving. Then it won't be hot. M. Thomas, tell them 15 minutes. M. You can't clear a valley in 15 minutes. Thomas, Emily said, and she was crawling now fast toward the only piece of ground on that ridge that could see the east and the south at the same time the piece of ground she had looked at 45 minutes ago and rejected because it was completely catastrophically exposed. M. Tell them 15 minutes. M. What are you doing? 0550. She got into it. She lay down on a shelf of rock with nothing above her and nothing beside her and nothing behind her in the open on a mountain in front of a valley full of men who had spent an hour trying to find her. Nathan, go Overwatch. There's a bird coming for Feeney. 15 minutes. The net made a sound. Ma'am. Nathan, they won't come in hot, so I'm going to make it cold. Ma'am, how? Emily settled her elbows. Nathan, she said, I'm going to let them find me. Inuits. 0550 in 30 seconds. Say that again, Brooks said. You heard me. Ma'am, say it again because I think my radio just broke in a new direction. Nathan, there are men on the east and men in the south wadi, and they've spent an hour trying to figure out where I am. They can't, so they're careful. Careful men shoot at helicopters. Ma'am, but a man who knows exactly where a sniper is stops being careful, Emily said. He gets brave, he stands up, he points, he tells his friends. And when a man stands up and points, he's not shooting at a helicopter. The net was silent. You're going to trade yourself, Colin said. Sarah, you're going to trade yourself for a helicopter. Sarah, I'm going to trade a secret for a helicopter, Emily said. That's different. Ma'am, that's not different. It's different if I win. 0551. M. Thomas. M. I heard that? I know you did. M. Absolutely not. Thomas. M. I have been on this phone for 6 hours and I have watched you do things I did not believe a human being could do. And I am telling you as a man who has known you since you were 22 years old, absolutely not. Thomas Feeney's got 20 minutes. Then Feeney's got 20 minutes, Thomas Reed shouted, and Emily heard a room in Bagram go dead quiet around him. M. Feeney's got 20 minutes and you've got a life, and I have already spent 8 years of my life knowing what I did to yours, and I am not adding this. I'm not. Emily lay on that shelf with her cheek on the stock and let him finish. Thomas, don't. Thomas, listen to me. There's a woman down there with her thumb in a man's chest. She's had it there for 2 hours. She hasn't asked anybody for anything. She hasn't cried. She hasn't quit. Do you know what she's done for 2 hours? M. She's lied to him, Emily said. Every couple of minutes, she's told Michael Feeney he's fine. 2 hours. That's the whole job, Thomas. That's the entire job. Somebody holds the hole shut and somebody lies about the clock, and both of them know. M. Thomas, nobody did that for me. The line went silent. Nobody put a thumb in it, Emily said quietly. 8 years ago, I bled out in a room with no windows, and every single person in that building watched it happen, and not one of them said, "You're fine." Not one. They just let it run out on the floor and then they mopped it. Am I? Thomas, I'm not saying it to hurt you. You should, Thomas said. You should say it to hurt me. I've been waiting 8 years for you to say it to hurt me. That's the problem with you, Emily said. You still think this is about you. 0552. Overwatch. Brooks. Ma'am, permission to speak freely. Nathan, you've been speaking freely for 2 hours and you've been right about half the time, which is a very good average. Go. Ma'am, don't. Nathan. Ma'am, I've got 21 people and every single one of them knows what you just said on that net, and every single one of them is doing the same math, which is that a woman they've never met is about to stand up in front of a valley so that Feeney can see a doctor, and ma'am. His voice broke. Ma'am, we can't carry that. You understand? We can't. We're already carrying everything. If you do this, we've got to take it home with us, and we've got to put it down somewhere, and there is nowhere to put it. Emily closed her eyes. Nathan, can I tell you something? Ma'am, you know what I did for 8 years? I taught a woman named Carol how to breathe. She's a dental hygienist. She's 54. She pulls the trigger instead of letting it go, and she'll never stop doing it. And every Tuesday, I'd tell her not to pull, and every Tuesday, she'd pull. Ma'am, that's it, Nathan? That's the whole 8 years. That's what they left me. And you're telling me you can't carry it if I stand up on a rock in Afghanistan so Michael Feeney can go home to Erie or wherever the hell he's from? Ma'am, he's from Lowell. Fine, Lowell. Emily's voice cracked and she let it. Nathan, I've been carrying nothing for 8 years. Nothing at all. Do you know how heavy that is? The net didn't answer. Let me carry something, she said. 0553. Ma'am, Jacob Miller. Jacob. Ma'am, can I say something? Say it. Ma'am, I don't have anything smart to say. I'm 19 and I've been here 2 weeks and everybody on this net outranks me by a lot. Jacob, you counted to 103 in the dark. You're the reason that first gun died. Say it. There was a pause. Ma'am, if you stand up, Jacob said. I'm going to stand up too. Emily's whole body went cold. Jacob. Ma'am, I mean it. If they're looking at you, they're not looking at us, and that's not fair, and I don't like it. So if you stand up, I'm going to stand up on this side of the valley, and they can look at both of us. Private Miller, you will do no such thing. Ma'am, you're not in the Army, Jacob said. You told us. You said you're a civilian with a hunting rifle. So respectfully, ma'am, you can't order me. Emily lay on that shelf of rock and laughed until her eyes ran. Nathan. Ma'am, I heard it. Nathan, sit on him. Already got a hand on his collar, ma'am. Sir, that's not. Jacob, Brooks said. Shut up. Shut up. That was the best thing anybody said all night, and now shut up. 0554. Thomas's voice was different now, hollowed out. The bird's 11 minutes. 11. They're asking for a status on the LZ. Vance is asking. He wants to know if it's cold. Tell him it will be. He's asking now. Thomas, tell him it will be. There was a silence. He's not going to accept a future tense. Then tell him, Emily said, that at 0536 he made a decision on a picture instead of a piece of paper, and it was the best thing he ever did, and I'm asking him to do it one more time. 0555. She keyed the mic. Nathan, listen, when that bird comes in, it's going to be 60 seconds on the ground, maybe less. You put Feeney on first. You put Dupree on second, then Torres, then whatever your medic says. Copy? Collins goes with them. Ma'am, she won't. Collins. Go. Sarah, you go with Feeney. Ma'am. Sarah, don't argue with me. I don't have the time to win. Ma'am, if I go, the 18 people still in this bowl have no medic. Sarah, if you stay, the man under your thumb dies in a helicopter with a crew chief who's got 11 weeks of training. Ma'am. You go, Emily said. That's not a favor, that's the bio. You've been holding him for 2 hours and you don't get to put him down at the last second because it hurts to leave. The pause was very long. That's a hard thing to say to somebody, Collins said. Sarah, I have not said one soft thing all night, and every one of you is still alive. 0556. Overwatch Ranger 6, what do you need from us? Nothing. Ma'am. Nathan, that's the truth. There's nothing you can do. You've got 9 men who can stand, and they're all inside 400 meters of a wadi full of people, and if you fire a single round in the next 9 minutes, you tell them you're not the interesting thing anymore. You have to be boring. Do you understand? For 9 minutes, you have to be the most boring thing in this valley. Ma'am, that's... Nathan, I know what it is. Ma'am, you're asking us to lie in a hole and listen. Yes. While you... Yes. Nathan Brooks made a sound she'd remember for the rest of her life. Ma'am, I've got a daughter turning 4 in 9 days. I know, Maddie. Ma'am, if I lie in a hole and listen to you die, I don't know how I look at her. Nathan, Emily said, you look at her and you say, honey, a woman I never met stood up on a rock so a man named Michael Feeney could see his mother. And then Maddie's going to be 4 and she's not going to understand a word of it. And that's fine. That's actually the point. 0557. Thomas. Vance says 9 minutes. Copy. He says, and I'm quoting him, exactly he says, tell her the LZ needs to be cold at the 6-minute mark, or I turn them and I will not be talked out of it twice in one night. Tell him 6 minutes is fine. Thomas, tell him 6 minutes is a lot. Tell him I've done more with less. That's not. Thomas. Her voice softened, and that was worse than anything. Thomas, I need you to do something for me. Anything. God, anything. Stop talking. Silence. I need the next 6 minutes, and I can't have you in them, Emily said. You've been in my ear for 8 hours, and you have been perfect, and now I need you gone. Don't hang up. Just stop. There was a sound like a man putting his hand over his mouth. Copy, Thomas Reed said. 0558. She did it the way she'd done everything else, which is to say she did the arithmetic first. The Wadi, the East, the 2 places she'd already hurt because hurt men come back. She counted the ground between them and the base of her ridge, and she divided it by how fast a man moves when he is furious and certain, and the number came out at 4 minutes and change, and 4 minutes and change was exactly enough, which she took as a personal message from a God she had stopped speaking to in a room with no windows. Then she stood up, not fast. That was the whole trick, and nobody would ever understand it. Not the board, not the reporters, not Carol. She stood up slowly on a rock on a ridge 11,000 feet up in the last gray before dawn, and she let herself be seen. Nothing happened for 9 full seconds, and then a man in the South Wadi started screaming. Overwatch! Brooks's voice was strangled. Overwatch, they're up. They're all up. Ma'am, the Wadi's up. They're pointing. There. I know. Ma'am, there's, I count, 14, 15, ma'am. They're running at the ridge. I know. Ma'am, get down. Emily Walker stood on a rock in front of an entire valley and did not move. Not yet, she said. 0559. Ma'am, they're firing. They're firing badly. Ma'am, Nathan, they're running and screaming and firing uphill at 400 meters. They're not shooting at me, they're voting. Ma'am, please. Nathan, how many of them are looking at your fold right now? Silence. How many, Nathan? None, ma'am. That's right, Emily said. That's the whole thing. That's the entire thing I came here to buy. 0600. She got down. She dropped into a fold in the rock. She'd picked 40 seconds before she stood up and the world came apart above her. And it did not matter because every single man in that valley was now running at a place, and a place is not a person. Nathan, 6 minutes. Ma'am, Nathan, say it. 6 minutes. Now be boring. 0601. She worked. It was not shooting. She'd tell them that later, and they'd write it down wrong. It was subtraction. 15 men running uphill at a woman who had spent 9 days in a ditch outside Kandahar, learning that patience is a weapon, and every 4 seconds there were fewer of them, and none of them could stop because they had already stood up, and standing up is a decision you only get to make once. At the 11th one, they broke. Overwatch. Brooks. Overwatch. They're falling back. No. Ma'am, they're running. Nathan, they're not running. Look at the ground. They're going left. They're going for the base of the ridge. They're going to come up the spur. Ma'am, can you? No. Ma'am. The spur's dead ground, Emily said. I can't see it. That's why I picked this shelf, because it sees the east and the south, and the price is I don't see the spur. There was a beat. Ma'am, how long? 4 minutes for them. Birds 5. Ma'am, that's... Nathan, I know what it is. 0603. M. Thomas. He couldn't help it. M, I know it. I know. I'm sorry M. Vance is asking for the LZ. Tell him cold. M, is it? Thomas, is there anybody left in that valley looking at that bowl? A pause, a drone feed, a room full of men. No, Thomas said, and his voice broke completely. No, M. There's nobody looking at the bowl. M, they're all, oh my God, they're all going at you. Every one of them. Then it's cold, Emily said. Tell him it's cold. 0604. The helicopter came in. Emily didn't see it. She heard it through a broken antenna through 21 voices, and she heard 60 seconds of the most beautiful chaos of her entire life. Feeney first, Collins, go, Seum. I'm going, get his legs, get his. Dupree, come on, brother, come on. Torres, ma'am, they're on, Feeney's on. 0605. Overwatch, Sarah Collins screaming over rotors. Overwatch, Walker. Go, Sarah. Ma'am, he's on the bird he's on. They've got volume. They've got hands on him, real hands. Ma'am, I'm not holding it anymore. I let go, ma'am. I let go, and he's still. Sarah. Ma'am, I let go, and he didn't die. Emily lay in the rocks with men climbing a spur she couldn't see and closed her eyes. Sarah, I know. Ma'am, 2 hours I had my thumb in a man for 2 hours, and I let go, and he didn't. Sarah, get on the bird. Ma'am, come with us. The rotors screamed. Ma'am, Collins was sobbing now openly, with no shame at all, into an open mic in front of 9 officers and a lieutenant colonel and a general. Ma'am, we can come get you. It's 90 seconds, ma'am. Tell them where you are, and we will come and get you off that mountain. Emily said nothing. Ma'am, Sarah, there are 18 people still in that bowl. The rotors changed pitch. Ma'am, Sarah, if that bird comes to me, it's got 18 people underneath it with nobody watching. Go home. Ma'am. Sergeant Collins, Emily said, go home. 0606. The helicopter left, and Emily Walker lay alone on a shelf of rock with men coming up a spur she could not see, and for the first time all night she was completely out of arithmetic. Nathan? Go Overwatch. How many rounds do you have? A pause. Ma'am, why? Nathan, how many? Ma'am, we're low. We're really low. Maybe 40 across 9 shooters. That's fine. Ma'am, that's not fine. That's... Nathan, 40 is a lot, Emily said. 40 is enormous. Do you know what I have? Silence. Say it, ma'am. 6, Emily said. 0607. M. Thomas. M. I've got Vance. He's turning the bird, he's. Thomas, no. M. He's turning it. He says he's got fuel for 1 pass, he says. Thomas, that bird has Michael Feeney in it. Silence. M. Thomas, that bird has a man in it who is alive by 4 minutes. If it turns around, he's not. Tell Vance no. M. I'm not going to. Thomas, tell Vance no, or I will get on the net and tell him myself, and he'll hear it from me, and it'll be worse. The line went quiet. And then from very far away, Emily heard Thomas Reed say to a room in a voice she had never in 30 years heard him use, she says no. 0608. They came up the spur. She heard them before she saw them, which was a mercy and also a joke, because she had spent her entire life being the person who saw first. 4 of them. 6 rounds. She used 4. 0609. Overwatch. Brooks. Overwatch report. Nothing. Ooh, Overwatch? Nothing. Emily. 0609 and 40 seconds. I'm here. The net exploded. Ma'am, say status. Say status. Nathan. Ma'am. I have 2 rounds, Emily said, and my rifle is broken. 0610. Say again. The last one got close, Emily said. Close enough to grab it. Nathan, he got a hand on my barrel. Do you understand what I'm telling you? A man came up that spur and put his hand on my rifle. Nobody spoke. Ma'am, Brooks's voice was very small. Ma'am, what happened? He's dead, Emily said, and my glass is gone. The scope's off the rail. It's on the rock somewhere about 4 meters below me, and I'm not going to get it. And if I did get it, it wouldn't hold 0 because it hit at about 110 meters per second. Silence. Ma'am, are you hurt? Nathan? Ma'am, are you hurt? I'm fine, Emily said. And on the other end of that net, a medic who wasn't there anymore on a helicopter 40 kilometers away would have known exactly what that sentence was, because she had said it 400 times in 2 hours with her thumb in most a man's chest. 0611. M. Thomas, very quietly. M. Thomas. M. I'm looking at the feed. Don't. M. There's blood on the rock. Thomas, don't do this to me right now. M. How bad? Thomas. M. Please. Emily lay with her face against stone and her left hand pressed into her own side and did what she had done for 8 years, which was arithmetic. It's through, she said. It's low and it's through and it's not arterial because I'd be dead already. That's the whole assessment. Now stop asking. M. Thomas, stop asking because I've got 18 people down there and a broken rifle and 2 rounds. And if I spend 1 more second on my own body, I'm going to start feeling it. 0612. And listen to me, it's over. What? It's over. The bowl's cold, the wadi's gone, the east is gone, the spur's gone. There's nothing left down there. M, you did it? It's done. We're spinning up a real extraction. We've got 2 birds in a full package and their wheels up in 11 minutes and it's over. Emily said nothing. M, did you hear me? Thomas, where's the vehicle? Silence. Thomas. M. Thomas, where is the vehicle? The one that backed out of the cut at 0516. Where is it? The pause went on for 4 seconds. Oh no, Thomas said. 0613. Overwatch Ranger 6, we've got engine noise. Emily was already moving. Ma'am, we've got engine noise from the northeast. Ma'am, it's the vehicle. It's the vehicle. It's coming back. Nathan, how fast? Fast, ma'am. It's not walking anymore. It's not being careful. It's got no dismounts, Emily said. It doesn't need to be careful. It's blind and it doesn't care. Ma'am, we can't. Nathan, ma'am, we've got 40 rounds and 7 men who can't stand and it's coming right at us and we cannot. Nathan, ma'am, we can't move them again. They can't take it. Dupree's gone. Torres is gone, but there's still 4 in that fold and they can't. Nathan, the net stopped. Nathan, listen to my voice, Emily said. How long? 4 minutes. 0614. Emily Walker lay on a rock with a broken rifle, 2 rounds a hole in her side, and 4 minutes. Thomas? M, don't. Thomas, is there anything? M, the birds are 11 minutes. So that's a no. M, that's a no. She closed her eyes, and then she said in a voice so calm it frightened everyone who heard it, Nathan, the man on the spur. Ma'am, the one who grabbed my barrel. He came up a mountain to kill me. Do you think he came up empty-handed? 0615. Ma'am, Brooks's voice had gone very careful. Ma'am, what are you doing? I'm going down 4 meters. Ma'am, you're... Nathan, be quiet. Ma'am, you said you're hit. Nathan, I'm going to need both my hands and my mouth is going to be busy, so I need you to not talk for about 90 seconds. 0616. It was on the rocks exactly where a man drops a thing when he stops being a man. It was not her rifle. It was not anything like her rifle. It was old, and it was heavy, and it was somebody else's, and it had a scope on it that had been mounted by a person who did not care. And it was in every way that mattered to Emily Walker an insult. She crawled back up 4 meters with it in one hand and her other hand in her side, and she lay down and she keyed the mic with her chin. Nathan, ma'am, I have a rifle. The net made a sound. Ma'am, Nathan, don't do that yet. Listen to me. I have a rifle that isn't mine. I've never fired it. I don't know it's zero. I don't know it's glass. I don't know what it does at 600 meters, and I have no way to find out because there's a moving target coming at you in 3 minutes, and I don't get a practice shot. Silence. Ma'am, Jacob Miller. Ma'am, that's impossible. Jacob. Ma'am, I don't know anything, but even I know that's impossible. You can't shoot a rifle. You've never. Jacob, how many cycles did you count? Ma'am. How many? 103, ma'am. And how many of those did anybody ask you to count? A pause. None, ma'am. Right, Emily said. So let's not talk about impossible. 0617. Thomas. That vehicle's armored. You said it yourself at 0508. You said you can't kill it with a rifle. I said I couldn't kill it with my rifle. It's the same physics. Thomas, it's not the same rifle. Silence. His voice changed. What did he have? Thomas, it's .50 caliber, Emily said. It's an old Russian thing, and it's ugly, and it weighs a ton, and it's got a scope on it that a child mounted, and I have never fired it in my life. Thomas, that's not the problem. Then what's the problem? The problem, Emily said, is that I have 3 rounds in the magazine, and it's going to take me 1 to find out what the gun does. 0618. Overwatch, it's in the cut. Nathan, is it stopping? No, ma'am, it's not stopping. It's not even slowing down. Ma'am, it's coming straight through, and it's coming at the fold. And there's 4 men in that fold who cannot move. And I've got 9 guys and 40 rounds, and I'm going to have to. Nathan, don't. Ma'am, I'm going to have to do something. Nathan Brooks, don't you dare. Ma'am, I can't lie in a hole and watch it drive into 4 of my men. Nathan, if you stand up with a rifle in front of that thing, you die in about 2 seconds, and then Maddie's 4 and nobody comes. Ma'am? Nathan. Ma'am, then do something. Nathan Brooks screamed, and it was the first time all night that man had lost control of his voice, and the whole net heard it, and the whole room in Bagram heard it, and Emily Walker heard it and understood that she had 90 seconds. 0619. She got behind it. It was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. The cheek weld was wrong. The length of pull was wrong. The glass was cloudy and mounted 3 degrees, canted by a man who had never cared about anything in his life. And the trigger was a suggestion rather than a mechanism. Nathan, go. Distance to the cut. Ma'am, 600, maybe 620. Speed. Ma'am, I don't. Nathan, guess. 2530. Wind. Ma'am, how am I supposed to? Nathan, I know, Emily said. I'm not asking you. I'm asking myself out loud because there's nobody else here to ask. 0619 in 30 seconds. She fired. She did not aim at the vehicle. She aimed at the rock face 11 meters left of it and 4 meters up, and she fired and she watched. Overwatch, you missed. Nathan, shut up. Ma'am, you missed. Nathan, I hit exactly what I was shooting at, Emily said. And I now know that this rifle shoots 2.1 mils high and 1.4 left, and that its glass is canted about 3 degrees, and I know that because I just paid a bullet for it. Silence. Ma'am, Jacob. Ma'am, did you just... Jacob, be quiet. I have 2 rounds in about 40 seconds. 0620. Thomas, whispering. The room. Thomas, not now. Hayes is watching. Emily's hands did not move. He's standing at the screen. He's been standing there for 9 minutes. He hasn't said one word since 0545. Thomas. He's watching you do this with a broken body and a stolen rifle, and his face. Thomas. I've known that man for 20 years, and I have never once seen it, and I'm looking at it right now. Seen what? Emily said, and Thomas Reed said, he knows. 0620 and 40 seconds. She fired the second round. It went into the front of the vehicle at 610 meters into a place that a woman who had never touched that rifle had calculated in 11 seconds using a miss she'd paid for on purpose, and it did not stop it. Overwatch, it's still coming. I know. Ma'am, it's still coming. It's Nathan, watch it. Ma'am. Nathan, watch it. Don't watch me. Watch it. 0621. It's slowed. Ma'am, it's slowing. Why is it, ma'am? It's because he's blind and something just came through his front and hit something in there, Emily said. And he's alone, and he's been alone for an hour, and he just found out that the thing on the mountain isn't gone. Ma'am, it's stopping. No, it isn't. Ma'am, it's Nathan, it's opening. 0621 and 20 seconds. The hatch came up. A man who had spent 1 hour blind in a metal box in a hallway in the dark, who had backed out once already, who had come back because somebody made him open his hatch to see. Emily Walker had 1 round. She had a rifle that wasn't hers, glass. A child had mounted a hole in her side, 109 minutes on that ridge, and 8 years in a room with no windows. Nathan, she said, ma'am, tell Jacob it was 103. And she let out half a breath and let the rest go with it. 0621 and 26 seconds. The rifle went, and for 4 seconds afterward, nobody on that net said anything at all. Overwatch, nothing. Overwatch report, nothing. Ma'am, Brooks's voice had gone somewhere very far away. Ma'am, it stopped. It stopped. The hatch is, ma'am, the hatch is open, and it's stopped, and it's not, ma'am, it's not doing anything. Overwatch, say status. Emily, 0622. I'm out, she said. The net came apart. She heard 9 men who had spent 22 hours in a hole discover that the last thing in that valley that could kill them had died 600 meters away in a narrow place, and she lay on a shelf of rock with an empty Russian rifle under her chest and her left hand pressed into her own side and listened to it, and she could not make herself say another word. Ma'am, Brooks. Ma'am, say again. You're out of what? Everything, Emily said. Ma'am, Nathan, I'm out of everything. I'm out of rounds. I'm out of rifles. I'm out of arithmetic. There was a pause. Ma'am, are you telling me that was your last round? Nathan. Ma'am, are you telling me you had 1 round and a rifle you'd never fired and a hole in you, and you shot a man through an open hatch at 600 meters? 610. Nathan Brooks made a sound like a man being hit. Ma'am. Nathan. Ma'am, what if it hadn't opened? Emily lay with her cheek on cold stone and thought about it honestly because he'd earned honest. Then I'd have had 1 round and no plan, she said. Ma'am. Nathan, he was always going to open it, Emily said. That's the whole thing. That's the entire thing. He'd been blind for an hour. He'd backed out once and gotten shamed into coming back. Something came through his front and hit something in there, and he didn't know what. A man like that doesn't sit in the dark and guess. He has to see. The net was silent. Nathan, I didn't beat that vehicle, she said. I beat a frightened man who needed to look. 0623. Thomas. He was crying and not hiding it. Thomas. The birds are 9 minutes. 2 of them full package. They're coming. They're coming, and there's nothing left down there to shoot at them. Good. They're going to come to you first. No, they're not. Thomas, they go to the bowl. There's 18 people in that bowl, and 4 of them can't stand up. You've got a hole in you. Thomas, I've had a hole in me for 8 years, and nobody ever scrambled a helicopter, Emily said, and then she heard herself say it, and she closed her eyes because that had come out of somewhere she hadn't given permission to. Nobody spoke. Thomas said quietly, forget it. No. Thomas, forget it. I'm tired and I've lost some blood, and that wasn't fair. It was completely fair, Thomas Reed said. It was the fairest thing anybody said in this room in 20 years. 0624. Overwatch, this is Ranger 6. I'm coming up. Emily's eyes opened. Say again. Ma'am, I'm coming up that ridge. Nathan, absolutely not. Ma'am, it's 40 minutes on foot, and I've got a shoulder that Colin says is going to be a great story, and I'm coming up. Nathan, you have 18 people. Ma'am, I've got Kowalski on the fold and Bright on the east, and the valley is empty, and the birds are 9 minutes, and there is a woman on that mountain who has been bleeding for 13 minutes while she talked to us in a voice like she was reading a phone book. Nathan, ma'am, his voice cracked straight through. Ma'am, we lay in a hole and listened to you do it. You made us lie in a hole and be boring while you stood up on a rock in front of a valley. You made us do that. Emily said nothing. Ma'am, I've been in this bowl for 22 hours, and I have not asked one person for one thing, Brooks said. I'm asking now. Let me come up. Emily lay there, and then because she was tired, and because she was out of arithmetic, and because for 8 years nobody had ever once asked to come up, she said, okay. 0625. Ma'am, Jacob Miller, very small. Jacob, ma'am, the captain says I can go with him. Jacob, no. Ma'am, I already started. Private Miller, ma'am, respectfully, you're a civilian with a hunting rifle. Emily laughed, and it hurt so badly that her vision went gray at the edges, and she laughed anyway. Jacob, ma'am, you don't have a hunting rifle anymore either, she said. It's 4 meters below me on the rocks, and it's Russian, and it's ugly. There was a pause, and then Jacob Miller said, Ma'am, I'm going to carry that thing home. 0631. Mom. Thomas's voice was strange. Careful. Thomas? Something's happening. Thomas, I've had about all the somethings I can take tonight. M. Hayes is asking for the net. Emily lay very still. Say that again. He's asking for your net. Not the phone, your net. The one Brooks is on. He wants on it. Why? I don't know. Thomas, do not put him on. M. Thomas, there are 18 Rangers on that net and a 19-year-old kid climbing a mountain, and I am not putting Richard Hayes in their ears. M. He's not asking me, Thomas said. He's got the authority. He's already doing it. M. He's telling me as a courtesy. A courtesy. M. He said, and I'm quoting, he said, Colonel, I'd like the captain to hear this from me. Emily's whole body went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the mountain. Thomas, get Deschler. What? Thomas, get to that major and put him next to that man and do not let him move. Whatever's about to happen, I want it witnessed. 0633. Ranger 6, this is Task Force 6. Emily heard Nathan Brooks stop climbing. Say again your call sign. Ranger 6, this is Task Force 6 Actual. General Hayes. The net was so quiet she could hear the wind. Go ahead, sir, Brooks said, and there was something in that man's voice that Emily had never heard, not in 22 hours, not when he was hit, not when he found out about the strike. Captain, I want to be the one to tell you that your extraction is 9 minutes out. 2 airframes, full package. Every one of your men is coming home tonight. A pause. Yes, sir. Captain, I also want to be the first to say that what your element did in that valley is the finest thing I've seen in 31 years of service. Emily closed her eyes. There it is, she said. M. Thomas. Thomas, listen. Listen to what he's doing. Captain Hayes went on, warm, patient, reasonable. I want you to know that from the first hour, this command never stopped working the problem. There was no point at which you were written off. I need you to hear that from me directly, because in the days ahead, you're going to hear a lot of things from a lot of people who weren't in the room. Emily lay on a rock with a hole in her side and understood completely that she was watching a man build a room in real time out of nothing at 6:33 in the morning over a radio in front of 22 witnesses. Sir, Brooks said. Yes, Captain. Sir, at 0521, there was a strike inbound on this grid. The silence went on for 2 full seconds. Captain, there was a great deal of confused reporting overnight. Sir, at 0521, this element heard a colonel say the words he told them, there are no friendlies in the bowl. Captain. Sir, my radio is broken in one direction, Brooks said. It is not broken in the other. Every man in this valley heard it. Sir, my 19-year-old private asked me if the plane coming to kill him was ours, and I did not have an answer for him, sir, and I'm his captain. Nobody breathed. Captain Brooks, Hayes said, and his voice had not moved a millimeter. You have been awake for 22 hours. You have been wounded. You have been under extraordinary stress. I want you to know that nothing you say in the next few hours is going to be held against you. And Emily Walker, lying on a mountain, said out loud to nobody, "There it is. M. Thomas. M. What? Thomas, that's it. That's the sentence. That's the exact sentence. M. Thomas, that's what he said to me," Emily said, and her voice came apart. 8 years ago, in that room, he said Captain Walker, under significant operational stress, made an error in judgment. He's doing it right now, in front of you. He's not defending himself, Thomas. He's not even arguing. He's already writing it. 22 hours awake, wounded, extraordinary stress. Thomas, he's building the folder for Nathan Brooks while the man is still climbing a mountain. The line was silent. "M," Thomas said, and his voice had gone somewhere flat and terrible. "M, he's done this before." "Thomas." "M, how many times has he done this?" 0635. "General," Emily's own voice on the net on the ground from the ridge. The whole world stopped. "Miss Walker?" "General, don't do that to him." "Miss Walker, this is a military net." "General, do whatever you want to me. You've already done it once and it worked, so do it again. You've got the muscle memory, but do not put that sentence on that man." "Miss Walker." "He's got a daughter turning 4 in 9 days, Emily said. "Her name is Maddie. He told me at 0529 because I asked him to say one thing about himself that wasn't in a file because I was reading 22 names into a satellite so a lieutenant colonel named Vance could decide whether you were lying." The net did not make a sound. "General, say something," Emily said. 8 officers are listening to you not say something. Again. 0636. "Miss Walker," Richard Hayes said, "you're bleeding out on a rock in a country you have no legal standing to be in, and in about 40 minutes you're going to be a very complicated problem for a great many people. I'd suggest you conserve your strength." And Nathan Brooks, 600 vertical meters up the side of a mountain with a hole in his shoulder, keyed his radio and said, "Sir, with respect, go to hell." 0637. "Captain Brooks," Hayes said, "you are relieved." "Yes, sir." "You are relieved of command of that element, effective immediately." "Sir, Bike," Brooks said, "there are 18 men in that bowl and 9 minutes until extraction, and you can relieve me all you want, but you're going to have to find somebody down there to tell." "Captain." "Sir, and I'm going to keep climbing." "Captain Brooks." "Sir, Private Miller is climbing too," Brooks said. "Relieve him as well, sir. He's 19. He's been in the Army for 2 weeks. He counted 103 machine gun cycles in the dark while carrying Sergeant Dupree, and he did it because nobody asked him to, and there's no folder anywhere in the United States Army that has that in it, and there never will be, and I don't care because I was there." 0638. "Sir," Deschler's voice from a room in Bagram. "Major." "Sir, I'd like the relief of Captain Brooks in writing." Major Deschler. "Sir, with a timestamp. And logged. Same as the drone reposition at 0504. Same as the relief of Colonel Reed at 0541. Major, you are dismissed." "Sir, I'd like that in writing too." And then a voice Emily didn't know, an older voice, a tired voice said, "Sir, I'd like everything in writing." And another said, "Same." And another said, "Sir, I've been standing in this room for 6 hours and I'd like the record to reflect that I was standing here." Thomas Reed's voice came into her ear, and he was barely audible. "M," he whispered. "M, they're all doing it, all of them. Every officer in this room just asked for something in writing." Emily lay on a shelf of rock 11,000 feet up and could not speak. "M, he built a room," Thomas said. "You said it. He built a room where the truth couldn't get in." "Thomas." "M, he's still in it," Thomas Reed said, "and everybody else just walked out." 0644. Nathan Brooks came over the lip of the ridge on his hands and knees with a 19-year-old private behind him carrying a Russian rifle he could barely lift. And he found a woman lying on a shelf of open rock with an empty magazine beside her, and her left hand pressed into her own side, and her right hand still on a weapon that wasn't hers. He stopped. For a long moment, he just stopped. "Nathan," Emily said, "you're standing in the open." And Nathan Brooks, 22 hours into the worst night of his life, laughed so hard he had to sit down. "Ma'am." "Nathan, sit down before you fall down." "Ma'am, I'm already sitting down." "And that's fine." He crawled the last 6 meters and got a hand on her shoulder, and then he saw her side and his face did something. "Ma'am." Nathan, don't. Ma'am, that's not through. It's through. Ma'am, that's not through. Collins would have. Nathan Collins is on a helicopter with Michael Feeney, and that is exactly where she's supposed to be. Brooks got his good hand on it and pressed, and Emily's whole body went rigid, and she did not make a sound, and that was somehow the worst thing he had ever seen. Ma'am, does that hurt? Nathan. Ma'am, tell me if it hurts. Nathan, of course it hurts. Ma'am, you have been on this radio for 2 hours and you never once. Nathan, Emily said, if I told you it hurt, would you have stayed in the hole? Nathan Brooks did not answer. 0646. Ma'am, Jacob Miller was standing over her holding a rifle that weighed nearly as much as he did, and he was shaking and he was 19. Jacob. Ma'am, Jacob, put that thing down before you drop it on me. Ma'am, I don't. Jacob. Ma'am, I don't know what to say to you, Jacob Miller said. And then he burst into tears, standing on a mountain in front of his captain, holding a dead man's rifle, 19 years old, 2 weeks in the Army. Emily reached up with the hand that wasn't holding herself together and got hold of his sleeve. Jacob? Ma'am, I'm sorry. Jacob, listen to me. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to. Jacob Miller, Emily said. 103. He stopped. Say it, she said. 103, ma'am. Nobody asked you to count. No, ma'am. Nobody was ever going to know. No, ma'am. Jacob, Emily said, that's the whole thing. That's the entire thing. That's every single thing that matters, and you did it in the dark with a man on your back at 19 for nobody. He was sobbing. Ma'am. Jacob, in about 9 minutes, there's going to be a helicopter, and after that, there's going to be about 4 years of people telling you what happened up here. Some of them are going to be very confident. Some of them are going to have folders. Ma'am. Jacob, you were here, Emily said. That's the only credential there is. Don't ever let anybody sell you a different one. 0649. Ma'am. Brooks, with his hand pressed into her side and his own blood running down his arm. Ma'am, permission to ask you something. Nathan, you have never once asked permission. Ma'am, why'd you come? Emily looked at the sky. Nathan, your colonel said a sentence to me on a kitchen floor in Montana. Ma'am, he said those soldiers don't know your story. They don't know the lies they told about you. They only know they're alone. Brooks didn't say anything. Nathan, I've been alone for 8 years, Emily said. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference and almost nobody knows it. Lonely is when nobody's there. Alone is when everybody's there and not one of them is coming. Ma'am, I know what that is, Emily said. I sat in a room with no windows and 3 officers with folders they never opened, and I understood in about 11 minutes that not one person in that building was coming. Not one. And then I went to Montana and I taught a dental hygienist named Carol how to breathe for 8 years. Brooks's hand was shaking. Nathan, when Thomas said you were alone, he wasn't recruiting me, Emily said. He was describing me. 0651. Thomas in her ear. The birds are inbound. 3 minutes. Copy. They're coming to the ridge first. Thomas, no. It's not my call and it's not yours. Thomas. Vance made it, Thomas said. He said, and I'm quoting him, he said, I already turned an airplane around on a picture tonight. I'm not arguing with a picture twice. He's got a feed on that shelf, Em. He's looking at you right now. Everybody is. Emily closed her eyes. Thomas? Yeah. Tell him to go to the bowl. They're going to the bowl too. 2 birds. 1 for the bowl, 1 for you. You don't have to fight anybody anymore. It's over. And Emily Walker, who had not cried in a room with no windows, who had not cried in 8 years in Montana, who had not cried through a hole in her side, lay on a shelf of rock with a ranger's hand pressed into her body and a 19-year-old holding her sleeve and cried like she was breaking. Thomas? I'm sorry. Thomas, don't. I sat in that room. Thomas. I sat in that room and I had 11 months to retirement and a daughter in college. And I let him say it, and I've had 8 years to say something, and I said it tonight because 22 people were dying and not because you were. His voice went completely. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I've never asked. I want you to know I know the difference. Emily lay there for a long moment. Thomas? Yeah. You called. M. 8 years late from an operations center with your pension in your hand, and you called, Emily said. Nobody else ever did. That's not nothing, Thomas. That's not everything. But it's not nothing. 0654. The helicopters came. Emily heard them, and she heard the bowl, and she heard 18 men who had spent 22 hours in a hole find out that the world had finally actually physically arrived. And then a crew chief was crouching over her, screaming numbers at her that she didn't need, and Nathan Brooks was fighting somebody who wanted to take his hand off her side, and Jacob Miller was standing on a mountain refusing to put down a Russian rifle. And the last thing Emily Walker heard before the gray came in from the edges was Nathan Brooks saying very close to her ear, "Ma'am, stay. Ma'am, Emily, stay." 0656, she stayed. 11 days later in a hospital in Germany, with a tube in her arm and a hole in her side that a surgeon had described as an insult to statistics, Emily Walker woke up to find a 19-year-old private asleep in a chair by her bed with a Russian rifle case at his feet because nobody in that hospital had been able to figure out who was supposed to tell him to leave. Jacob, he came out of the chair like he'd been shot. "Ma'am." "Jacob, sit down." "Ma'am, you're." "Jacob, sit down before you fall down." He sat down, and then he said, "Ma'am, they're all here." "Who's all here?" "Ma'am, everybody. The investigation took 14 months. It should have taken 4 years. It should have taken forever. It should have died the way those things die quietly in a building in a folder, with everybody very sorry and nobody responsible. It didn't, and the reason it didn't was a thing that nobody at any point had planned. 9 officers had asked for something in writing. That was all. That was the whole thing. 9 officers in an operations center in Bagram at 0638 on a morning in February had each one at a time in front of each other asked for a piece of paper with a timestamp on it, and by the time anybody senior understood what had happened, there were 9 independent, contemporaneous timestamp records of the same night written by 9 people who had watched each other write them. You cannot build a room around that. Lieutenant Colonel Vance turned over a tape. Major Deschler turned over a log. Colonel Thomas Reed, retired unpensioned, 63 years old, sat in front of a board for 6 days and answered every single question they asked him, and then answered the one they didn't. "Colonel, is there anything else you'd like to add to the record?" "Yes, sir." "Go ahead." "Sir, in 2017 in a room in Virginia, I watched Colonel Richard Hayes end the career of Captain Emily Walker for reporting a falsified mission timeline, and I said nothing, and 4 men who died in a valley in Nuristan never got an accounting, and I've had 8 years to say this, and I'm saying it now." "Colonel, you understand what you're saying about yourself?" "Sir," Thomas Reed said, "that's the only part of it I'm sure about." They found the original logs. They had been there the whole time. That was the part that broke people. They had been sitting in an archive for 8 years, exactly where Emily Walker said they were exactly what she said they were. And not one human being had ever gone and looked because nobody looks in a room that's already been closed. 90 minutes. A rescue window moved back 90 minutes so that a timeline would look better than it was. 4 men. Brigadier General Richard Hayes never lied. He said that over and over for 14 months to investigators and lawyers and a board of officers in that patient, warm, reasonable voice. And the maddening thing, the thing that nearly beat everybody, was that he was almost right. They went through 31 years of that man's career, and they could not find a single sentence he had ever written that was false. He'd never had to. What they found instead was a shape made out of choices, assessments made in rooms where the information couldn't get in, reviews that were very thorough, officers who under significant operational stress made errors in judgment, 14 of them across 3 decades, 14 careers. Every single one of them had reported something first. The board sat with that for a week. And then a young major named Deschler, testifying about a night in February, said the sentence that ended it. "Sir, at 0545, she asked him a question in front of 8 officers. She said, 'Say you didn't know, and I'll never speak your name again.' 4 words, sir, I didn't know." And he stood there for 7 seconds. "Major, what did he say?" "Sir," he said, "nothing said here has any standing whatsoever." "And what did you understand that to mean?" Deschler looked at the board for a long moment. "Sir," he said, "I understood that a man had just been offered his whole life back for 4 words and couldn't afford them. Richard Hayes was retired at the lowest rank he had held satisfactorily. That's the phrase. It's a strange, dry, bureaucratic phrase, and it looks like nothing on a page, and every soldier who has ever heard it understands exactly what it means, which is that 31 years were reviewed and found to have a floor. He never went to prison. That's the part that made Sarah Collins throw a coffee cup across a room in Fort Benning. He never went to prison, and he lives somewhere, and he's fine. But there's a file, and in that file on the first page, there's a timestamp. Emily Walker got her rank back on a Tuesday. She said afterward that the Tuesday part was what got her, because Tuesdays were the day the range was empty in Montana, and for 8 years, Tuesday was the day she'd sit alone and listen to the wind coming off the ridge and read it out of habit, 11 right to left with a stutter at the 200 mark for absolutely nobody. They offered her more than her rank. They offered her a lot of things. There was a ceremony, and there were cameras, and there was a general, a different one, who shook her hand and said the words the institution says. She took the rank. She took the record correction. And then in front of everybody, she asked for the one thing they hadn't offered, which was the block of instruction. "Ma'am, the block," Emily said, "the operational stress block. In the Q course, my name's in it." There was a very uncomfortable silence. "Ma'am, that's been pulled." "Pulled? Ma'am, it was pulled in March, obviously." "Put it back," Emily said. Nobody moved. "Ma'am, I don't understand." "Put it back," she said, "and put the rest of it in." They put it back. If you go to Fort Benning today, there's a block of instruction on operational stress, and there's a case study in it, and it's 40 minutes long, and it has a woman's name on it. It starts the same way it always started. There was a captain, a sniper, one of the best they ever had. She cracked under pressure and lost control on a critical mission, and they had to take her out of the fight. The instructor lets that sit for a second, and then he says, "That's what we taught you for 8 years. Every word of it is false. Here's what actually happened." Nathan Brooks made major. He kept the shoulder and the scar in the story, and every year on a day in February, he calls a number in Montana, and every year the woman who answers says the same thing, which is, "Nathan, how's Maddie?" And every year he says, "Ma'am, she's fine." And then neither of them says anything for a while, and then they hang up. Sarah Collins left the Army and went to medical school at 34. And there's a thing she does that her residents find unbearable, which is that she will not let them say the word if. "Say when." "Doctor, say when." Michael Feeney is alive. He's in Lowell. He works at a hardware store, and he has a limp, and he has a scar that goes most of the way around him. And about once a month, somebody asks him about it, and he says, "A woman I've never met stood up on a rock in Afghanistan." And they say, "What?" And he says, "That's the whole story. That's all of it. A woman I've never met stood up on a rock." Jacob Miller is a sniper. He went to the school. He was not the best shot in his class. He was not close. He was, according to every instructor who ever had him, the most patient human being any of them had ever met. And one of them wrote on his evaluation in a box that isn't meant for that kind of thing, "This soldier counts. He has a rifle in a case in a closet. It's Russian, it's ugly, it weighs a ton. He cleans it every 11 weeks. Thomas Reed died 3 years later, and Emily Walker sat in the front row. And when they asked her to speak, she stood up in front of 200 people and said 11 words. "He called," she said. "He was 8 years late. He still called." And she sat down. Emily Walker teaches now. Not at Benning, though, they asked. She goes back to Montana to the little range out past the grain elevator, and Carol still comes on Tuesdays, and Carol still pulls the trigger instead of letting it go, and Emily still tells her not to, and Carol still does it. The first Tuesday after she came home, Carol looked at her over the bench and said, "Emily, who were you before you came here?" And for 8 years, the answer had been nobody interesting. Emily looked at her for a long moment. "Carrollton," she said, "I was a captain in the United States Army. I was one of the best snipers they ever had. I told the truth about a man, and he took my name and gave it to a classroom full of children as a warning, and I let him have it for 8 years because I believed him when he said what happened is whatever ends up in the folder." Carol didn't say anything. "And then one night a phone rang," Emily said, "and 22 people I'd never met needed somebody, and it turned out the woman who taught you how to breathe could still read wind." Carol set the rifle down. "Emily," she said, "why'd you never tell me?" "Because I thought it was gone." Was it, Emily looked out at the ridge at the wind coming down off it, 11 right to left, with a stutter at the 200 mark, the same wind that had been there the whole time, the same wind that was in the Hindu Kush, the same wind that had never once cared what was written about her in a building in Virginia. No, Emily Walker said. It was never gone. It was just waiting for somebody to ask. Richard Hayes was wrong about one thing and only one, and it was the only thing that ever mattered. He said she was a rifle. He said rifles don't testify, they get cleaned or they get thrown away. He threw her away and never once checked whether she landed. She landed in Montana. She landed on a kitchen floor at 9:40 on a Thursday night in February. She landed on a shelf of rock 11,000 feet up with 2 rounds in a broken body and 18 people who couldn't stand. And then she got up. 22 Rangers came home because a woman the United States Army taught its children to be afraid of refused to let anybody else be alone the way she had been alone. The folder is gone.